Chapter 410. Under normal circumstances, transferring one's soul space was a complicated matter that could only be handled by high-level cultivators. This was because the requirements for the spell used were quite high. Under normal circumstances, the highest spell that a soul formation cultivator could use was level 5, Perfected Person level 6, Itinerant Immortal level 7, and True Immortal level 8. And the spell to transfer a soul space was an advanced level 8 spell. Furthermore, there was a certain chance that it would fail when using a level 8 spell to transfer a soul space. And the worst-case scenario was that the soul space would be destroyed along with it. Thus, Taoist Guang had taken a huge risk when he had implanted the soul space into the heavenly Fisher Stone back then. However, Wang Ling could completely ignore this situation, because the 3,000 great spells he had mastered were above level 8, and were classified as super spells. Wang Ling actually had an estimate of their specific level, which was around 14 or 15. Thus, using the 3,000 great spells to move a space was a very different situation. Would the game experience be the same between level 8 and level 15? Of course it would be different. Thus, Wang Ling held the ring in one hand and stroked Loopy Toad's tender green dog head with the other, as he was about to cast a spell to transfer the space into the soul suppression ring. Loopy Toad couldn't see any hand seals, but its head felt hot, but it was completely bearable. Spirit light emerged from Wang Ling's palm and instantly enveloped Taoist Guang's soul space. Taoist Guang stood on the island and waited calmly. He had already waited for many years, and a little longer actually didn't matter. But at that moment he looked up at the sky. A bright golden light suddenly surged out from the cloud layer in the sky. It was just like a golden-colored ink that swiftly seeped out from the cloud layer. Within a couple of exchanges, it had covered the entire sky of the spiritual realm. Taoist Guang was extremely shaken. What kind of powerful spirit power was this? Even if he had successfully survived the samsara spirit tribulation and was at his peak, there was no way he could possess such great magic power. This senior was even more terrifying than he had imagined. As Taoist Guang watched Wang Ling's power almost completely merge with the space, a green dog head suddenly appeared in the air. Taoist Guang. Loopy Toad's voice came out of the air like a Buddhist Buddha. Senior Pang, my master is transferring your space. Please don't be nervous. Remember to relax and don't resist. All right. Taoist Guang nodded. He knew that the senior outside was giving him a way out on purpose, because even if he was at his peak, he wouldn't be able to resist such power. It was utterly impossible to stop it. Taoist Guang was well aware of this, and he couldn't help sighing in his heart. When all was said and done, Taoist Guang was an old senior who had attained the great Tao. He handled matters like thunder, handled matters thoroughly, and considered every detail. Taoist Guang felt that there was a huge gap between him and Wang Ling in every aspect. Now that he thought about it carefully, he had already lost. Moreover, he had lost completely. It seemed like he could not win against any of them in terms of morality, intelligence, physique, beauty, or labor. This time, it took him a long time to activate the spell. It took him a full 10 minutes to completely embed the entire soul space into the soul suppression ring. This was a true immortal level soul space after all. Thus, there would be some resistance when moving around. In fact, this was already more than 100 times faster than ordinary teleportation methods. Most importantly, it truly achieved zero risk. You can come out now, Senior Pang. Loopy Toad said as it stared at the soul suppression ring in Wang Ling's hand. The moment the soul space had been embedded into the soul suppression ring, Taoist Guang had already sensed its power. His soul emerged little by little from the ring, and in the end, he landed in Wang Ling's room. Taoist Guang swept his gaze around and saw a green-furred dog, a young man in white, and a youngster holding a ring in his hand in the room. Thank you, Senior, for saving me. Taoist Guang immediately bowed to Wang Ling in thanks. I'll leave it to you. Wang Ling got up and said indifferently telepathically. His task was already over, so he would leave the rest to Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal to ask questions while he listened on the side. Taoist Guang had clearly already sensed that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's relationship with Wang Ling wasn't simple, so he turned to ask, Brother, you are? I'm Brother Ling's friend Lei Morin. My Taoist name is Grenade-Throwing Senior Immortal. Grenade-Throwing Senior Immortal replied. Of course, sometimes I also moonlight as his secretary. Brother Ling and Ling Jinren usually don't like to talk much. Senior Pang just needs to get used to it. Taoist Guang nodded in understanding. Of course. After all, every word from an expert of Senior Ling's realm could be a heavenly secret. But come to think of it, Senior Ling's realm is unfathomable. So why do you still call him Jinren? Everyone's already used to this title, and Brother Ling doesn't mind, so we might as well call him that. It's just a title, Senior. Grenade-Throwing Senior Immortal said as he sat upright on the floor. Taoist Guang sighed. It's me. But on the other hand, it's also because I haven't been out in a long time, and I don't know how the current cultivation circle is doing. I've been locked up for nearly 900 years, so I know that the outside world has definitely changed a lot by now. Grenade-Throwing Senior Immortal. Senior Peng's cultivation is so high. I believe you're a very adaptable person. You'll get used to it very quickly. Taoist Guang made a sound of agreement, and then couldn't help asking. One last question. I'd like to ask, what is this magic ring that holds my soul? Grenade-Throwing Senior Immortal replied. This is the soul suppression ring, which Brother Ling refined. Soul suppression ring? Taoist Guang was a little absent-minded. Does Senior know the origin of this ring? No, I don't. I just thought of something. Then let's get started. In exchange for helping Senior Pang, Senior Pang promised us that he would tell us everything he knows about the Immortal's treasure house. I definitely know everything. But before Taoist Guang could finish speaking, Grenade-Throwing Senior Immortal saw Taoist Guang's soul unexpectedly flash and directly disappear. Grenade-Throwing Senior Immortal turned to look at Wang Ling. Brother Ling, what's going on? Loopy Toad, out of power? Wang Ling cupped his chin in thought. He guessed that this was the first time Taoist Guang's soul had left the ring, and the spirit power stored in the soul suppression ring hadn't been enough, which was why the ring had taken his soul back in advance. Since the soul was fixed in the ring, there was no way to communicate at all if it couldn't come out. The soul suppression ring was originally a magic artifact whose main purpose was to preserve the soul. The one in Grenade-Throwing Senior Immortal's hand was of a higher quality, and had other special effects than a holy weapon. Now it would take a very, very long time for the soul suppression ring to store spirit power again. Brother Ling, do you have any other way? Grenade-Throwing Senior Immortal broke out in a sweat when he heard Wang Ling's telepathic analysis. After all, it was a true immortal soul, and it definitely consumed a lot of spirit power. But to be automatically taken back by the ring, before he could even say a few words, that was too much of a pain in the ass. Put a computer in it, Wang Ling said telepathically after thinking for a bit. There's this kind of operation? Loopy Toad and Grenade-Throwing Senior Immortal were stupefied. Now that things had come to this, it didn't seem like there was any other way. Since Taoist Guang could embed the soul space into the ring, then he could also embed other things into the ring. If he could put an electronic product like a computer or a cell phone into the ring, even if Taoist Guang couldn't show himself, he could still chat. Furthermore, since the soul space had been embedded into the ring, Loopy Toad wouldn't be able to enter Taoist Guang's space even if it dreamed. Chapter 411. This was a situation that even Wang Ling hadn't anticipated. He had forgotten to estimate how much spirit power it would take for a soul to manifest in the real world through the power of a magic treasure. It took a whole day for the soul suppression ring to be fully charged with spirit power, but Taoist Guang appeared for less than 3 minutes each time, even shorter than Ultraman. There were 2 ways to solve this problem. One was to continue expanding the storage space for spirit power in the soul suppression ring, and the other was to suppress Taoist Guang's spirit power consumption. The problem was that both of these things required Taoist Guang's cooperation. The current situation was that because Taoist Guang's soul space had been transferred to the soul suppression ring, he would be completely cut off from the outside world before the next spirit power deposit was complete. Senior Pang must be very anxious. I have to find a way to contact him as soon as possible. But Brother Ling, just said he was going to send the computer in. How are you going to do that? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal actually had a limited understanding of the soul space, but he still had basic knowledge about it. The structure of the soul space was intricate and complicated. Taoist Guang had given the blueprint to Loopy Toad previously, because he had put it away in the soul space at the very beginning, and once it was taken out, there was no way to put it back in. The Great Sacrifice spell, Wang Ling said indifferently, then revealed another of the 3,000 great spells that he had mastered. He didn't use this technique often. It was one of the more unpopular ones among the 3,000 great Tao. The origin of spells could be traced back to the ancient times. In that era, there were many powerful beings who fought for supremacy. In the process of continuous battles between powerful beings, someone finally discovered a way to gain power in a short period of time by sacrificing living beings. This was the origin of the Grand Sacrificial Spell. Of course, that was a dark period in history, and Wang Ling had developed a new use for the Great Sacrifice Spell now. Since Brother Ling has a way, that's good. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal didn't ask about the origin of this spell in detail. There were a lot of abilities that Wang Ling had that he had never heard of or seen before. A cultivator's personal spells were a relatively private matter to begin with. No matter how good their relationship was, it would be rude to ask about it rashly. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal then straightaway took out his phone and started tapping randomly on the screen. Since that's the case, let's not waste any more time. I'll place an order first. Loopy Toad, place an order? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Of course it's to buy a computer. We can't possibly send Brother Ling's own computer in, right? Loopy Toad. But are you sure Taoist Guang will use it? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal paused. Loopy Toad had indeed hit the nail on the head. Actually, when Taoist Guang had appeared just now, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's strong adaptability and whatnot were just polite words. For many seniors who had been in seclusion for a long time and had been out of touch with modern society for centuries, learning to use modern technology was much more difficult than learning a high-level spell. So it wasn't enough to just buy it. He also had to record a tutorial to teach Taoist Guang how to use a computer. At the very least, he had to learn the basics of chatting. After looking through the online shopping mall for a long time, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that buying a desktop computer at Taoist Guang's current stage was too complicated. Even if there was an instruction manual, Taoist Guang wouldn't be able to understand it in a short time. Later, he simply picked a Crooked Alien Smart Notebook for the elderly. Although this Crooked Alien Notebook was labeled for the elderly, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had always felt that it was simply for lazy people. This type of notebook had been specially designed by businesses for older cultivators who wanted to learn how to use a computer. The notebook had an AI robot inside, so if you wanted to learn how to operate it, you just had to open your mouth and ask. You didn't even need a mouse or keyboard. However, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal still had to record a tutorial video to teach Taoist Guang how to turn it on. If he didn't know how to turn it on, everything would be for naught. As for the power source, there was even less to worry about. Many household appliances in modern cultivation society were powered by spirit power, and this kind of smart notebook for the elderly naturally had a built-in spirit power battery. Even if it was used for a whole month without turning it off, it would consume much less spirit power than if Taoist Guang made a trip on his own. Very good, it was decided. Place the order. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal pressed the payment button, and in passing also selected the express service, which would be delivered by Shunfeng God Express in 20 minutes. I bought it, it'll be delivered in 20 minutes. The young man in white put down his phone and breathed a sigh of relief. How much is it? Loopy Toad couldn't help asking. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal waved his hand and quickly replied, Not expensive, it's 800,000 HNY. Loopy Toad. Of course he didn't think it was expensive. How much did it cost? Those holy artifact magic rings that Wang Ling had given her couldn't be bought for less than 1 million immortal gold bars. And this computer was only 600,000, and it was in HNY. It was simply ridiculously cheap. Loopy Toad cocked its head and stole a glance at Wang Ling, who was lying in bed bored to death, probably waiting for the express delivery. Although Loopy Toad couldn't see Wang Ling's expression on his face, it was sure that he had already converted 600,000 HNY into crispy noodle snacks. After that, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal really did appear in person to record a tutorial for Daoist Guang. He was worried that if the tutorial was in the form of a video, Daoist Guang might not know how to open it. Thus, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal simply used his old method, which was to use a regular magic treasure called an image recording stone, instead of recording. The market for image recording stones was already quite small, and they were very cheap, but there were still people selling them. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal usually carried a few with him in case he needed them. This was a habit he had developed a long time ago. Just as he finished recording with the image recording stone, sure enough, the doorbell of the Wang family's villa rang on time. A delivery man appeared at the door with a box in his arms. Although Wang Ling was lying in bed, this delivery man had in fact already entered his range of perception a long time ago. This guy's aura had fallen from the sky. When Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had gone out to pick up the express delivery, he had indeed seen the parachute the delivery man was carrying on his back. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal looked at the sky. It seemed that he had indeed heard the sound of a plane just now. Because of the consideration of labor costs, the vast majority of express delivery companies would hire couriers who were body refinement stage or refinement stage. At most, they would hire some foundation building stage cultivators. They would simply not hire cultivators who were above the Aura's core stage to deliver their packages, as it would be too wasteful. But it was these ordinary people who completed their tasks every day, rain or shine. What kind of unswerving determination was this? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sighed with emotion in his heart. Nowadays, a delivery man had to learn how to parachute. They were really working too hard. Holding the box, the delivery man took off the pen cap with his teeth. "Sir, your express delivery. Please sign for me." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal swiftly signed and couldn't stop praising him. "Brother, your parachute jumping is pretty good. It's pretty accurate. Sir, you flatter me. It's all because of my internet cafe training." The delivery man smiled slightly. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. "Delivery man, eat more chicken, you can do it too." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Chapter 412. On the abandoned construction site in front of the Wang family's small villa, Wang Ling had already finished drawing a sacrificial magic array. The characters on the array were very complicated and flickered with a dim golden light. But even if Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal activated his heavenly eye, he wouldn't be able to see these words. He could only see some basic array characters. This sacrificial refinement formation was also a unique formation of the great sacrificial refinement art. The core characters used to set up the formation also originated from the word heaven of the 3,000 great Daos. Even a true immortal would find it difficult to see through the formation characters derived from such a supreme technique. By the way, what kind of spell is this? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was very curious. Loopy Toad. It's also Little Master Ling's first time using it, I'll just watch. He placed the soul suppression ring in the center of the sacrificial array, which was the eye of the array. Then, he fetched the computer that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had bought, and put it on the array sub 1 meter away from the eye of the needle. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal noticed that Wang Ling actually hadn't used the gravitational spell, but had personally placed his hand on the sacrificial array. He felt that there must be some profound and unfathomable words here. Wang Ling's strength was so great that even Daoist Guang, a true immortal, was extremely respectful of him. To be able to make such a friend and call him brother, the young man in white thought that he must have saved the world in his previous life. Clearly, he still had a lot to learn. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had actually been thinking about a lot of things in the last few days. For the sake of cultivation, he had been diligently studying. He studied the broccoli that old Senior Wang had given him. Not only did he manage to grow more, he even managed to develop a safe catalyst that could speed up the growth of the broccoli without being poisonous. Unfortunately, he was unable to comprehend the heavenly Tao. He had also read Senior Wang's latest novel, The Live Streaming Life of the Immortal King. He could remember every word in every sentence, and even the number of punctuation marks in a chapter. Unfortunately, he was unable to comprehend the heavenly Tao. He also wore the long johns that Mother Wang gave him, and he was reluctant to take them off. Unfortunately, he still couldn't comprehend the heavenly Tao. What was the reason that caused his current level to stagnate? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that Wang Ling was probably the biggest problem. If the reason Ling Junren was so powerful was because he had lived with these great seniors in these villas all year round, then when all the objective conditions for comprehending heavenly Tao were met, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal suddenly realized that learning from Wang Ling was the real key to comprehending heavenly Tao. Thus, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was now particularly concerned about Wang Ling's every move. "Brother Ling, what are you doing?" He couldn't help asking when he saw that Wang Ling hadn't moved after putting the notebook and its packaging into the array. As always, Wang Ling's words were concise and to the point. "Burn. Burn." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Loopy Toad on the side were both blank. Then, the young man in white and the green-furred dog at his feet saw a small flame rise from Wang Ling's finger. With a flick of his finger, the flame landed on the brand-new notebook's packaging. Whoosh! The flames burned fiercely. In the blink of an eye, tongues of flame had already swallowed up the packaging, and the brand-new notebook was instantly turned into a cloud of flying ash. After doing all this, Wang Ling put the soul suppression ring back into the array and said indifferently, "The sacrificial refinement is complete. This notebook, I've already burned it for him." Loopy Toad, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. One man and one dog were directly shocked. So this was how the great sacrifice refinement spell was used. It was as if Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was already imagining a scene from thousands of years in the future. His own son would kneel in front of his incense and set up the exact same sacrificial refinement array as Wang Ling had done, then cry out, "Grandpa, the author of that unique novel you were reading has resumed updating it. I'll burn it for you." At this thought, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't help shuddering. Loopy Toad knew that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's imagination had most likely wandered into something strange again. On the other side, Wang Ling gazed at the soul suppression ring in his hand and sighed deeply in his heart. The notebook had already been burned for Taoist Guang, and the shadow recording stone tutorial, which Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had prepared previously, was hidden in the notebook's packaging. The two items had been burned together and sent over. As for how long it would take Taoist Guang to learn the basics of how to operate a notebook, that would depend on his luck. But Wang Ling knew that he couldn't rush the current situation. After all, the elderly were less able to absorb new things, and he needed to be patient. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had originally planned to talk to Taoist Guang face to face, but hadn't expected this to happen. So there was no point in continuing to stand guard at the Wang family's villa. Before burning the notebook, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Wang Ling had set up a private discussion group, and they had also helped Taoist Guang apply for an account and pull him directly into the discussion group. As for the account and password, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had already explained in the shadow recording stone that if Taoist Guang learned how to operate it, he should be able to go online on his own. So instead of waiting here bitterly, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that he should make full use of this time to send the holy artifact magic rings that Wang Ling had given him to the other people in the chat group one by one. Wang Ling had burned the notebook at a little after 10 o'clock, and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had left the villa at 11 o'clock. Standing on the second floor, Wang Ling watched the young man in white kiss the soul suppression ring in his hand as he left elatedly. Then, not long after Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal left, Wang Ling suddenly noticed that the chat group seemed to have become lively. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. "Everyone, I'm here to give each of you a surprise." Silian Jinren. "What surprise?" Lightning Dharmaraja. "Benefits? But it's not the new year yet." It wasn't that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had never given benefits in the group in the past. But it was indeed a little strange, since it wasn't a holiday, or the new year yet. Stunned, Immortal Toya sent a sweating emoji. Could it be that Senior Immortal lost a bet with someone, and now wants to send a cross-dressing photo in the group? Lightning Dharmaraja immediately replied, I think it's very likely. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal didn't care at all, and just sent several smiley emojis in a row. When I find you, you'll know. I'll send them to each of you now. Everyone will have one. Lightning Dharmaraja sent a funny emoji. Senior Immortal, you actually don't have to specially send a cross-dressing photo. As soon as Dharmaraja sent this message, the group instantly fell silent. Because generally speaking, anyone who took the initiative to tease the group leader would most likely be banned. And in this group, the only person who dared challenge the group leader's authority was Lightning Dharmaraja. However, to everyone's surprise this time, not only didn't grenade-throwing Senior Immortal reply, he didn't even ban them. Lightning Dharmaraja was shocked. What's going on? Salyanjinran sked. It seems that Senior Immortal is particularly happy today. I remember that the last time Senior Immortal sent several smiley emojis in a row was when he received a gift from his ex-girlfriend. But less than 2 seconds after sending this string of words, Salyanjinran immediately pressed the withdraw button. Lightning Dharmaraja. I saw it. Immortal Toya. I saw it. Fangxing. I saw it. Little Silver. It seems he knows something incredible. Bueling Blade Immortal. Holy F***CK. I saw it. 9 times man in one night. Amazing, Lingjinran. Salyanjinran never thought that there would actually be so many people watching. And even Lingjinran was there. This was a little embarrassing. She had promised grenade-throwing Senior Immortal that she wouldn't tell anyone. But she hadn't been careful just now, and hadn't been able to help herself. Just as Salyanjinran was about to say something to ease the awkwardness, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal actually sent a voice message to the group. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal also added a message to the voice message. This was a song that was quite popular recently. It was called Take You on a Trip. And this voice recording was grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's version. Chapter 413. Wang Ling hadn't expected his gift to make grenade-throwing Senior Immortal so happy. The problem was that while the young man in white had been pleasantly surprised when he had received the gift at the villa just now, he hadn't been so elated that he had to sing to express his emotions. Wang Ling suddenly felt that he had unearthed one of grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's hidden attributes. This was probably what people called being indifferent on the inside. Wang Ling had always felt that he was the only one who had this problem. But then again, he remembered that this Take You on a Journey was probably one of the more popular songs recently. A few days ago, he had seen Super Chun wearing headphones to play the single on loop after class. He even played the school radio broadcast during the lunch break every Thursday, making the whole campus feel like they were in love. Apart from this song, there was another brainwashing song recently, and that was We're Different. But the problem was that he had never heard grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sing before. So when they saw grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sing, it wasn't just Wang Ling. Everyone else in the group froze in front of their screens for 3 seconds. Dharmaraja was blank for a moment, then directly typed in the group. Senior Immortal, although I haven't listened to it yet, do you know? Fat Tiger? Everyone. Salyanjinran. Dharmaraja, it's better if you listen to it, it's very rude of you. Dharmaraja. I'm just worried that Senior Immortal has developed some kind of musical weapon, and wants us to experiment with it. For a moment, the group fell into a brief silence. Because no one could figure out what on earth was wrong with Senior Immortal today, who was actually so happy that he couldn't help singing. At that moment, it was Little Silver who took the lead in cheering him on. Everyone listened to it. Senior Immortal sings very well. Appreciating the song, Wang Ling clicked on grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's a cappella. As a holy beast, Little Silver usually didn't listen to human music, but he still had the ability to appreciate it. And as Little Silver had said, Wang Ling felt that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal actually sang very well. Not only was every note in tune, His voice was also very distinctive. It was completely different from his normal speaking voice, and gave off a warm male senior vibe. Loopy Toad was also pleasantly surprised. It seems that Senior Immortal has some skill. When he turned his head to look at the chat group again, there were already a lot of likes and cheers. Xiaoyan Jinren was a little excited, and gave him several thumbs up. You sang really well, Jinren. It's the first time I've heard a perfected sovereign sing. And he's even able to record it with his phone. He's really amazing. Immortal Toya couldn't help praising her. Indeed, she sang very well. At that moment, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had only just finished singing the main song. And then the chorus started to play. Wang Ling suddenly felt that something wasn't right. Xiaoyan Jinren, did you sing the wrong lyrics? Why are the lyrics of the chorus a little different from what I've heard before? Shouldn't the first sentence be, I want to take you to romantic Turkey? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal finally replied. I didn't sing it wrong, I changed the lyrics. I have a habit of changing my lyrics when I sing. Xiaoyan Jinren replied. So that's how it is. But Immortal's words are quite rhyming. At least at first glance. It doesn't feel out of place. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Really? Ha ha ha. I also think I have a talent for writing lyrics. Roughly 3 seconds later, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal very confidently posted the lyrics he had changed. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's demonic version of Take You on a Trip. Lyrics of the chorus. I want to take you to romantic Turkey. Then we'll go to the holy land of cultivation together. Actually, I prefer to stay at home. Eat crispy noodle snacks to stave off hunger. After reading the lyrics, the entire chat group fell into a dead silence. Wang Ling sucked in a cold breath. In order to make the lyrics rhyme, that was too crazy. In the blink of an eye, it was already afternoon. After Wang Ling clicked on Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's song, he couldn't calm down for a long time. At that moment, Wang Ling suddenly heard Father Wang's blood-curdling screams from the villa. They were so mournful that they sounded like the main characters in Detective Conan, who had discovered the scene of a murder. Loopy Toad abruptly raised its dog head. What's going on? Wang Ling didn't need to look to know that it had to be Father Wang's old problem acting up again. He could tell from the intensity of Father Wang's blood-curdling screams what on earth had happened to him. This inhumane howl of pain. Wang Ling guessed that Father Wang's hemorrhoids were definitely acting up again. This was a valuable experience that Wang Ling had accumulated over the years in the villa. Hemorrhoids were Father Wang's old problem, and the main cause was a lack of exercise and sedentary behavior. It was completely caused by poor living habits. First of all, Father Wang hardly ever went out, and spent all day sitting in an armchair in the study typing. Apart from that, the toilet bowl in the bathroom was second only to the armchair in the study as Father Wang's favorite place to visit. According to Mother Wang, if you added up all the time Father Wang spent sitting on the toilet bowl, it would be enough to make a person contemplate 3 lifetimes. And maybe even see peach blossoms 10 li away. The most important thing was that Father Wang's hemorrhoids had an extremely strong resistance to drugs. Ordinary medicine couldn't cure them. Every time they acted up, he would have to apply the special medicine that Immortal Toya had developed. He had also seen the Medicine King token before. It was a pile of powder that looked shiny and cold to the touch at his fingertips. Pouring it on the affected area for about 30 seconds would immediately cure it. But the price he had to pay was a heart-wrenching pain. Of course, Wang Ling could actually cure a minor illness like this. But Father Wang wouldn't let him treat it no matter what. Father Wang felt very ashamed to have his own son treat his hemorrhoids. As the head of the family, if he couldn't even overcome a minor illness like this, how could he shoulder the heavy responsibility? This was a man's dignity. If you were a man, you would overcome hemorrhoids on your own. This was a vow Father Wang had made in his heart after his first hemorrhoid attack back then. After a full minute or so, Father Wang's screams continued to ring out. This time, it seemed to be taking a little longer, so Wang Ling decided to take a look. Generally speaking, the screams should have stopped in about 30 seconds. Wang Ling had just come downstairs when Father Wang's screams stopped. He was lying on the sofa with his forehead beaded with sweat, looking as weak as a rich lady who had just given birth. Mother Wang put away the medicine and couldn't help reprimanding him. Your illness is caused by looking at your phone on the toilet. When you go to the toilet later, I'll cut off the internet. No way. Even if it hurts to death. You can't cut off my internet. Father Wang was excited. Every morning when I sit on the toilet is when I open my Smurf account and fight the trolls. Alright then, cut off the internet. I have another way. Mother Wang couldn't help smiling. There was a hint of slyness in her smile, which startled Wang Ling and Loopy Toad. Then, Mother Wang turned to look at Wang Ling. Ling Ling, you came just in time. Contact Little Ming later and have him deliver your father's birthday present in advance. Wang Ling. Father Wang. What? Little Ming prepared a present for me? Mother Wang smiled. That's right, Little Ming personally custom-made it for you. Father Wang. Isn't it too early for my birthday? What's the hurry? By the way, what's this present? Mother Wang continued to smile. An intelligent hemorrhoid prevention toilet. Father Wang. Wang Ling. Mother Wang. The longer you sit on the toilet, the hotter it gets. Little Ming said that even a nascent soul cultivator will have to stand up in less than 5 minutes. Father Wang. Chapter 4:14. Father Wang had just applied the medicine. Although the hemorrhoids were completely healed, the cool sensation left behind by the special medicine was as stimulating as Wang Xiaojuan's repeated blows between his thighs. This cool feeling would last for a very long time. After the intense stinging pain from the medicine was over, there would be a persistent numbness that spread throughout the lower half of Father Wang's body. So he wouldn't be able to move for a while. Women are the most vicious. Lying on the sofa, Father Wang wailed in despair in his heart. When he thought about how he would no longer be able to sit on the toilet and ponder over the plot for a long time in the future, Father Wang despaired and couldn't help roaring. The toilet was every creator's mental food, or source of mental energy. This was also Loopy Toad's first time seeing Father Wang's hemorrhoids flare up, and it was quite frightened. There were times when Loopy Toad actually didn't quite understand why some stubborn people were so fixated on their so-called dignity. It was just hemorrhoids. Loopy Toad felt that if it had one, it would definitely stick its butt over and let Wang Ling touch it without a second thought. What was wrong with touching its butt? It wasn't like it would lose a piece of flesh. This was a rare daily anecdote, and Loopy Toad felt that this question was worth thinking about. So, in the end, Loopy Toad decided to write about this in its human observation diary. With the title, If You Have Hemorrhoids and Your Butt Is Touched, Would You Rather Be Touched or Preserve Your Integrity? This was an order from Mother Wang herself, and Wang Ling naturally didn't dare disobey. There were 3 toilets in the Wang family's small villa, so there were 3 toilet bowls in total. Wang Ling's bedroom had its own bathroom, which was where that enlightened Lord Ma was, and the ones Mother Wang wanted to replace were the 2 outside. Wang Ling had just texted Wang Ming when Wang Ming replied almost instantly. Oh, miss me again? Wang Ling did his best to resist the urge to crush his wristwatch, and truthfully explained what Mother Wang had told him just now. After learning the whole story, Wang Ming was delighted, and he grinned widely in front of the screen, baffling the other people in the research institute. Only President Qi, with one hand in his pocket and the other holding the large cup of water that old cadres used, watched this scene calmly, as if he had already seen through everything long ago. Wang Ming's reply came very quickly. What? Uncle Wang's hemorrhoids acted up again? Last time, I told him to sit less and exercise more. It's not good to squat on the toilet all the time. It's easy to cause bacterial infections. Don't worry, I'll take care of this. I'll arrange for someone to come and assemble it tomorrow. Wang Ming had already prepared this birthday present beforehand, so it was just a matter of sending it in advance. However, there was another awkward situation. That was he had to prepare a new gift on his birthday. Wang Ming also expressed his opinion on Father Wang's hemorrhoids incident. Very quickly, Wang Ling received another message from Wang Ming. Actually, it's Uncle Wang's fault, who told him to have an unstable schedule. Once your endocrine system is out of balance, it doesn't matter how many nutritionists you eat. Wang Ling stared at the message in a daze. thinking that it was rare for his idiot brother to be serious for once. He was wondering if he should reply seriously as well. Wang Ming's next message came in. Isn't it just being touched by my son just a touch? If I get hemorrhoids, you can do whatever you want. The corner of Wang Ling's mouth twitched. He just knew that this guy wouldn't be so serious. On the other side, Wang Ming could almost imagine the expression on Wang Ling's face when he saw this message. Wang Ming felt that apart from doing scientific research and inventing, he had to find all the fun in his life. From Wang Ming privately thought that teasing Wang Ling was a very interesting thing. Most people wouldn't be able to do it. Wang Ling had just finished texting Wang Ming, but the chat group wasn't idle. Looking at the messages that had popped up on the screen, he was suddenly surprised to find that he had actually been pulled into a group chat called Gossip Conference Room. Furthermore, this group chat had just been set up, and it just so happened that the creator was Lightning Dharmaraja. At that moment, more and more people were being pulled from grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's chat group next door into this temporary group chat, which Dharmaraja had created himself. Wang Ling swept his gaze over the group members, and found that most of them were there, except for Little Silver and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. This was already quite obvious. Gossip Conference Room Lightning Dharmaraja. Everyone, I want to expose. I have gossip, I can't hold it in any longer. Salian Jinren sent a few sweat-wiping emojis. Dharmaraja, please calm down, speak slowly. Do you remember when you were too excited and caused the Godly Thunder inheritance to leak out, and cause a large-scale power outage in the area? Immortal Toya was blank. There was such a thing. Salian Jinren. Yes. Later, Dharmaraja pretended to be a warm-hearted citizen, and personally went to repair it. He was even awarded a silk banner later. In front of the screen, everyone couldn't help sucking in a cold breath when they saw what Salian Jinren had just said. What kind of trick was this? Lightning Dharmaraja. Jinren, don't interrupt me. I'm talking about serious business. Why are you exposing me? What I'm going to say today is much more explosive. Mr. Toya had been preparing to refine elixirs with a pile of materials ready. He was a little unhappy at being interrupted, just as he was about to start the furnace. I say, Dharmaraja, why haven't I seen you so gossipy before? Lightning Dharmaraja. You don't know how explosive this matter is. Let me tell you, Senior Immortal is probably already married in secret. Salian Jinren. Nanny? Immortal Toya. What the hell? Fang Xing. Wang Ling. Salian Jinren took a deep breath and tried to remain calm. Didn't Senior Immortal give us something? How do you know he's married? Ring. I saw Senior Immortal wearing a ring. Without saying anything else, Dharmaraja directly took a photo of the soul suppression ring and sent it to the group chat. See, Senior Immortal is wearing this ring. Moreover, he even gave me an identical magical ring. Could it be that this still isn't enough to explain the problem? Fang Xing couldn't help laughing. So Senior Immortal wanted to give us magic rings. But, isn't it a little too arbitrary for Dharmaraja to conclude that Senior Immortal is secretly married just based on a ring? Dharmaraja. But the problem is that Senior Immortal is wearing the ring finger of his left hand. Wang Ling. Dharmaraja. He gave each of us the same ring. It's obvious that this is a public display of affection. I think we need to organize a group and ask Senior Immortal face to face. The corner of Wang Ling's mouth twitched. This was a big misunderstanding. Chapter 415. Wang Ling never thought that a ring would actually cause such a big misunderstanding. When all was said and done, it was grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's fault for being too careless and actually wearing the ring on his ring finger. Wang Ling thought that after receiving the ring, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had probably been careless and hadn't noticed the impact. Fortunately, this matter didn't involve Wang Ling. If he spoke up for grenade-throwing Senior Immortal now, it would instead raise suspicions. This group of people in the chat group never lacked imagination and the spirit to watch a good show, especially Dharmaraja. These kinds of cultivators who specialized in lightning spells had always been wild and unruly in nature. and they were full of enthusiasm like the aunties of the neighborhood committee. So in the end, it was up to grenade-throwing Senior Immortal himself to smooth things over. If he didn't, his image in everyone's hearts would probably collapse, because usually, when it came to a secret marriage, it was more likely that one would become a happy father. Gossip meeting room. The gossip continued. Everyone had been discussing the ring for a long time in the chat group. Although grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's realm was currently stuck at the peak late soul formation stage, and he was only one step away from a higher realm of comprehension of heavenly Tao. The reason why he was so popular and so well known in the cultivation circle was because of his righteous persona and his fearless death-seeking spirit. Hence, everyone in the group was particularly concerned about this matter. If this righteous persona was attacked by some people with ulterior motives because of this secret marriage, the consequences would be very big. Wang Ling understood this point. This chat group had been set up for a number of years, and this group of people had met each other in private and experienced all kinds of hardships together, so their feelings for each other were solid. Dharmaraja. Everyone, no matter what the truth is, let's keep quiet for the time being until we have enough evidence. Senior Immortal might also have something he can't say. It doesn't seem good to openly question him face to face like this. It's not giving him face. Wang Ling stared at the screen and couldn't help the corner of his mouth twitching. You're already chatting with so many people, yet you're still thinking about face. How meticulous, huh? Salyanjinran. Then Dharmaraja, what do you mean? Lightning Dharmaraja. Now the best way for us to deal with this is to ask indirectly. On the other hand, collect as much evidence as possible. The best situation would be for the Supreme to tell us himself. Otherwise, we would have to ask him personally with evidence. Now we have to get what we ask for. Everyone. Immortal's secret marriage isn't a big deal, but it's not a small deal either. Fortunately, only a few of us know about it. If those people outside get wind of it, Immortal will have a tragic end. At this point, Dharmaraja paused for a moment before sharing a map. It was the location of his house. Dharmaraja. Judging from the direction Senior Immortal was heading in, his next target should be you, Immortal Toya. Immortal Toya sighed. I was just about to refine elixirs, but Senior Immortal's matter is more important. Don't worry, I'll be careful. Dharmaraja frowned. Also, there's one more thing we need to pay attention to. Everyone knows that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal is usually the closest to Lingjinren, and Brother Little Silver is currently staying at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's place for the time being. In order not to alert the enemy, I excluded Ling Jinren and Brother Little Silver from this chat. Wang Ling stared at the screen, his face twitching uncontrollably. Fang Xing. Salyan Jinren. Immortal Toya. Lightning Dharmaraja. What does everyone mean? Why are you all sending question marks? Fang Xing couldn't help laughing as he quickly typed. Dharmaraja, look at the group members again. Ling Jinren is in it. In that instant, Fu Wang felt a chill run down his spine. He broke out in a cold sweat, drenching his entire back. He opened the list of group members and sure enough, Wang Ling was in it. He was so scared that he almost threw his phone. He had forgotten that Wang Ling's profile picture was a whiteboard, and hadn't checked it carefully when he had added him, thus bringing him in. Holy shit. He really was there. Withdraw. Hurry up and withdraw. If Ling Jinren saw that message, it would be too embarrassing. Dharmaraja wanted to cry in his heart, but had no tears to shed. He was simply going to cry at his own stupidity. But when he wanted to take back what he had said earlier, it was already too late. System prompt. You can't take back a message from 2 minutes ago. It was over. GG. Seeing that he couldn't take it back, Dharmaraja broke out in a cold sweat as he spammed the screen with a series of emojis to top the previous message. This was too embarrassing. Through the screen, everyone could feel Dharmaraja's flustered expression. Dharmaraja sent 3 smiley emojis in a row, and with one last glimmer of hope, he asked weakly, by the way, Senior Ling hasn't spoken all this time. At this time he shouldn't be online, right? Salyan Jinren sent several candles. Dharmaraja, my condolences. Fang Xing followed with a copy. Dharmaraja, my condolences. Immortal Toya. Dharmaraja, is this your first day in the group? Ling Junren might have a habit of seeing through us. Dharmaraja felt his embarrassment cancer flaring up. It hadn't been long since they had set up this chat group, and they had been chatting for less than 10 minutes. And Senior Ling usually only glanced at it once in a while. Even if he did, it was impossible for him to keep doing so. Dharmaraja wiped at his cold sweat, still feeling that he had a chance. Impossible. How can my luck be so bad? At this moment, a familiar ellipsis appeared. Dharmaraja looked at the profile picture, already feeling a little confused inside. The blank one. Senior Ling really is peeping. It was really awesome. Salyan Jinren. Immortal Toya. This time, even 9 times man couldn't take it anymore. Senior Dharmaraja, how about apologizing? In the entire chat group, only Immortal Toya and Wang Ling knew that this 9 times man's real identity was actually Blade Master General Yi's smuff. Immortal Toya sighed in his heart. It was obvious that General Yi was secretly instructing Dharmaraja on how to deal with this senior right away after offending him. Sometimes, rather than being coy, it was better to be frank. Unfortunately, Dharmaraja clearly didn't understand this point. 1 minute later, it was a message from Lightning Dharmaraja. Everyone, I'm really sorry for what happened just now. It was my little brother who was using my account to send random messages. Sorry for the trouble. Everyone. It wasn't long before everyone saw Wang Ling send a string of kitchen knife emojis, and there were exactly 6 of them. It was an astonishing number of points in the ellipsis. Fang Xing. Dharmaraja, take care, Immortal Toya. We will remember you. Salyan Jinren sighed. Everyone, you must remember that Dharmaraja was a respectable person when he was alive. Chapter 416. Wang Ling felt that Dharmaraja hadn't removed him from the list when he had selected everyone. This probably wasn't due to Dharmaraja's negligence, but because Wang Ling's great fortune spell was still in effect. This was a farce, and Wang Ling actually hadn't wanted to get involved in the first place. As for sending out these 6 kitchen knives, that was entirely because Wang Ling had been mischievous for a bit. But he was really happy to be mischievous. In fact, Wang Ling wasn't angry at all. In addition to the upcoming midterm exams, he now had to focus his energy on the district sports meet and the search for the Immortal's treasure house. He wasn't in the mood to pay attention to this farce at all. After staring at his phone for 10 seconds or so, a short video from Lightning Dharmaraja suddenly popped up in the group chat. It was an apology video which Dharmaraja had just recorded. In the video, Dharmaraja ran over from a distance, then suddenly jumped up and directly did a 960-degree spin in the air. Finally, he landed on both knees and kowtowed forward. The moment his forehead hit the ground, a round crater was created. Everyone in front of the screen couldn't help letting out a hiss. This action of apologizing was a little too fierce. Fang Xing. Dharmaraja's head is iron, Salyan Jinren. Dharmaraja's head is iron, Immortal Toya sighed. AI. If you had apologized to Ling Junren earlier, there wouldn't have been so much trouble. Looking at the video, Wang Ling actually felt a little apologetic in his heart. He hadn't taken this matter to heart to begin with, but in the end, it was Dharmaraja who had been frightened by his mischievous 6 kitchen knives. Maybe he should clarify things. Thinking this, Wang Ling started to type in the group chat to explain that he wasn't angry. But for some reason, halfway through typing, the screen suddenly froze. And in the next moment, Wang Ling realized that he had actually left the group chat. Wang Ling. Wang Ming had personally designed this wristwatch, and it was equipped with the most cutting-edge technology. Logically speaking, it was absolutely impossible for it to freeze. Thus, Wang Ling quickly came up with another theory. He felt that this situation was probably due to the ongoing effects of the Great Fortune spell. Wang Ling had said before that he didn't like this spell, because once it was activated, there would be checks and balances. To put it simply, when it came to the same thing, some people were extremely lucky, while others were extremely unlucky. This was the principle of balance between heaven and earth, and this balance was also reflected in the techniques of the 3,000 Great Das. Everything was fated in the unseen world. Gossip room system. Ling Junren has left the group chat. On the other side, after seeing the notification from the system, Dharmaraja broke down. Dharmaraja. They retreated. Salyan Junren said, Dharmaraja, good luck. Immortal Toya. Dharmaraja. This was your fault to begin with. You shouldn't have kept it from Senior Ling. Given Senior Ling's character, even if he knew, he would never say anything. For you to leave him out of the group chat is firstly rude, and secondly, it's a manifestation of your distrust of Senior Ling. Looking at the screen and Immortal Toya's analysis, Dharmaraja felt his life sink into darkness. It was over. Senior Ling was really angry. Dharmaraja. What should I do now? Fangxing smiled. Senior Dharmaraja, there's no need to be too nervous. Given Ling Junren's realm, he's emotionless and won't easily get angry over trifling matters. Actually, it's possible that his hand slipped, and he left the group chat. The corners of Dharmaraja's mouth twitched. Brother Fong, don't comfort me. I've decided it's better for me to personally apologize. Hand slipped. Leave the group chat. Who would believe that? Dharmaraja screamed helplessly in his heart. It was either his bad luck, or his hand slipping, and leaving the group chat was just too metaphysical. And now, Dharmaraja was faced with a very important problem, and that was giving a gift. There was no way he would go empty-handed to apologize. Dharmaraja. Everyone, do you know what Ling Junren likes or lacks? To be honest, Dharmaraja felt that it was especially stupid to ask this question. It made him look like a retard. Given Senior Ling's realm, how could a boss-level senior like him lack anything? Did he lack money? Probably not, right? A senior at this realm would definitely have his own treasure trove, and the wealth behind it would definitely be incalculable. Did he lack magic treasures? Dharmaraja felt that the magic treasures he could give out weren't as powerful as a toothpick that someone had enlightened. Senior Ling probably wouldn't like them at all. It wasn't like he could give away his holy relic, the godly thunder inheritance, as a gift. In fact, if Wang Ling told anyone that he didn't have any money, and that Father Wang was using all sorts of methods to deduct his allowance every day, no one would believe him at all. Father and Mother Wang had instilled in him from a young age a frugal education. On one hand, it made him appear more low-key, and on the other, it helped him establish correct values. As a boy, it was enough to spend where he needed to. It was enough to give him a bit of pocket money to develop a sense of financial management. He didn't need to give too much money. If he developed the habit of being generous and extravagant, that would be truly eye-catching. Thus, in the cultivation circle, Father and Mother Wang had looked down on those second-generation rich kids who relied on their family background to strut around, such as Lin Sikong. It was a hot topic every 2 or 3 days. Even the disappearance of a dog was known by everyone and made a big fuss about it. After Dharmaraja asked this question, the chat group fell silent for a long while. The truth was that Wang Ling's interests and hobbies were no longer a secret to most of the people in the chat group. But the problem was that Dharmaraja actually hadn't realized it, which was amazing. Salyan Junren. Dharmaraja, your perception is really too poor. Even if today's incident hadn't happened, you would have offended Ling Junren in the future. Think about it carefully. What is it that Ling Junren's expression is usually different when he sees something? Dharmaraja. What do you mean? Immortal Toya couldn't help sighing. You'll have to ask Brother Fangxing about this. His family does this. Dharmaraja seemed to understand a little. He knew that Fangxing's family ran a noodle shop. That was to say Ling Junren liked to eat noodles? Dharmaraja. Thank you for the reminder. I understand, but there are a lot of different kinds of noodles. Which one should I buy? Immortal Toya. A regular flavor is fine. Fangxing. If Senior Dharmaraja doesn't mind, you can come to my noodle shop when you're free. I'll prepare something for you. Dharmaraja. That's not very good, is it? If I take this thing from Brother Fangxing's noodle shop to Ling Junren's house, I'm afraid it will get soaked on the way. Salyan Junren. Immortal Toya. Fangxing. Senior Dharmaraja. Why do I feel like we're not on the same channel? What do you mean we're not on the same channel? It's just noodles. Dharmaraja understood. But then again, is this jajang noodles or beef noodles? Chapter 417. Dharmaraja's heart was filled with despair. He deeply regretted his rash actions. The people in the group chat were also in deep despair about Dharmaraja's comprehension. Of all the people in the group, why was it that Dharmaraja was the only one who had triggered Ling Jinren's misfortune? Now they finally found the reason. Senior Fuwang, come to my family's noodle shop when you're free next week. I'll have someone pack it up for you, and you can take it directly. After typing this, Fang Xing stared at the screen and smiled. Senior Ling will definitely like it. Dharmaraja. Then many thanks, Brother Fang Xing. Come to my place next time, and I'll give you free electric therapy. Fang Xing. At that moment, a system notification popped up. Immortal 2 has joined the group chat. This brand new name stunned everyone in the group. The two immortals? Who is this? The creator was not the only one who could add people to a group chat. Other people could do the same. Salian Jinren was the one who pulled the second immortal in. Salian Jinren. Let me introduce Immortal 2 to everyone. I added him to the main group at the same time. As for his identity, he's actually Senior Ling's spirit beast. At this point, a lot of people already understood, since many people in the group had seen Loopy Toad before. Loopy Toad also had a cell phone, but it was an old product that Father Wong had left behind. Still, it had all the functions of a smartphone, and it had helped Loopy Toad a lot with this old phone, so that it could learn the basics of a language faster. Last month, when the old man had gone grocery shopping, he had helped Loopy Toad get a SIM card. Loopy Toad had also applied for an account to log into the chat group a few days ago. Watching Wong Ling chat with this gang every day, Loopy Toad actually felt quite bored. Hence, it had decided to sneak in to relieve its boredom. That silver unicorn was in the big group, so Loopy Toad felt that there was no need to hide. Wong Ling gave Salian Jinren a heads up about Loopy Toad joining the main group, and it was directly let in. In front of the screen, Loopy Toad typed, "Hello everyone. Hello Immortal 2. Hello Immortal 2. Everyone responded and greeted him. Dharmaraja. Immortals, are you still as green as before? As soon as Fuwang's words left his mouth, the entire place fell into a deathly silence. Loopy Toad sweated. To put it nicely, Dharmaraja's personality was straightforward, but to put it bluntly, he lacked EQ. Fortunately, it was a society ruled by law and in an era of peace. If it was in the past, he would have been beaten to death long ago. Fang Xing. Senior Dharmaraja, don't you realize how serious this is? Why do you think Second Immortal came in? Please advise me. Brother Fang Xing. Dharmaraja didn't dare say anything else, and sent an emoji wiping sweat. He was just joking, but he didn't expect the atmosphere to turn cold in an instant. Fang Xing stared at the screen and smiled slightly. It's clear that Senior Ling doesn't want to talk to you right now, and has thrown a dog at you. Salian Jinren. Immortal Toya. Everyone, let's chat first. Senior Immortal just texted me that he'll be arriving on my island soon, and I'll go greet him. If there's anything new, I'll inform you immediately. After sending this message, Immortal Toya quickly closed the chat window and breathed a silent sigh of relief. He didn't know why, but he seemed to smell a trace of gunpowder just now. Actually, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal hadn't arrived on the island yet, but according to Immortal Toya's calculations, he should be on his way soon. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had also been here before, but he had never actually entered the island. It was Immortal Toya who had arranged for the medicine boy to greet him on the island's outskirts. Because every time grenade-throwing Senior Immortal came, Immortal Toya just happened to be in the middle of refining elixirs. I'll invite Senior Immortal in first this time, and then we'll see how things go. In front of the pill furnace, Immortal Toya frowned. He was thinking about how he could use a tactful tone to ask who the mistress of the ring was. Chrysanthemum Island wasn't an island, but a lake island in the middle of Yunlan Lake, which was 600 li south of Songhai City. Chrysanthemum Island couldn't be considered big, but it was Immortal Toya's place of residence in Songhai City. Together with this azure Yunlan Lake, and the purple bamboo forest 5 li away from it, it was Immortal Toya's private territory. This was a piece of land that Immortal Toya's clan had acquired a long time ago, and the title deed had now been passed down to Immortal Toya's generation. As they approached the purple bamboo forest, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal saw that there were already 2 Foundation Establishment medicine boys, one male and one female, who looked to be about 12 or 13 years old, waiting at the entrance, and his eyes instantly lit up. "Hello, Senior Immortal. Hello, Senior Immortal." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal smiled. "Hello. I haven't seen you for a long time, but your spirit roots seem to have become a lot purer." These 2 medicine boys were originally a pair of abandoned brother and sister, who had been picked up by Immortal Toya and brought back to Chrysanthemum Island more than 10 years ago to be his disciples. Later, Immortal Toya named them Jinshi and the younger Inshi. "It's Shifu who taught us well." The elder brother Jinshi smiled and bowed. When Senior Immortal visited a few times before, Shifu happened to be refining elixirs, and it really wasn't convenient for him to come out and greet you. So he sent us out. This time, Shifu happens to be free, and would like to invite Senior Immortal to the island for a chat. "That's great. I've never been to Brother Two's Chrysanthemum Island." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal smiled. "Senior Immortal, please come with us." The younger sister Inshi nodded, and walked into Purple Bamboo Forest with a smile on her face. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal followed them, and couldn't help sighing with emotion in his heart. This pair of twins had been taught very well, especially in recent years. Every time he came here they had changed. When he had picked them up as children, their physiques had been so weak that it was impossible for them to cultivate, and even their spirit roots had been weak and damaged. In the end, they had successfully reached the Foundation Establishment stage at the age of 13. This growth rate was faster than that of those rich second-generation kids who took drugs outside. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had heard before that Immortal Toya had developed a unique prescription for body tempering, chi condensation, and then Foundation Establishment. Not only could it repair damaged spirit roots, it could even speed up cultivation at this stage. Most importantly, this prescription's biggest characteristic was that it didn't suffer any losses. This meant that even if it was refined to speed up cultivation, it wouldn't affect one's foundation in the slightest. Nowadays, there were too many rich second-generation kids in the cultivation circle who were too lazy to cultivate and relied on drugs to climb up to the Foundation Establishment stage. The biggest problem with this group of people was their foundation. They had a realm, but it was just an empty frame. They were fat. But as far as Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal knew, this unique Immortal Toya family formula hadn't been made public yet. He had only heard Immortal Toya mention it when they had been drinking tea previously. Now, seeing the changes in these siblings, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that the development of the prescription was nearing completion. When the time came, if they announced that they had applied for a patent money aside, it would be a good thing. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was also happy to see the 2 medicine boys leading the way as they talked and laughed. He had watched Jinshi and Inshi grow up. "You siblings seem to have a good relationship," Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said with a smile. Jinshi turned his head slightly and replied with a smile. "Actually, we did quarrel before. And we quarreled very fiercely. But Shifu always taught us that siblings should love each other." Inshi continued her brother's words. "Also, our spirit roots actually haven't fully recovered yet. Shifu said that we have to be happy during this period. So we've been communicating more in recent years." "How do you communicate?" Jinshi and Inshi said in unison. "For example, we take a bath together at night." Chapter 418. Take a bath together. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took a deep breath and did his best to keep calm. He had watched Jinshi and Inshi grow up. These 2 kids basically had no contact with the outside world, and all their education had come from Immortal Toya. Apart from recuperating and cultivating, they studied hard. Their hearts were pure, and it was unlikely that they would do anything dirty. But then again, did Brother to forget to popularize this aspect of knowledge? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal rubbed his chin as he pondered. There was a difference between men and women. No matter how close siblings were, there was still a window between them. At that moment, he suddenly thought of his little sister, grenade-throwing senior immortal. But in contrast to the well-behaved enrich, his little sister was quite irascible and a sadist. Grenade-throwing senior immortal deeply thought that if there were more girls like his little sister nowadays, there wouldn't be enough beds in the German orthopedics department. As his imagination ran wild, enrich and enrich led the young man in white through the winding black bamboo forest. Not far ahead, a young man who looked like a star stood calmly on the shore of the lake, with a large gourd on his back. It was obvious that he had been waiting for a long time. Shurfu, senior immortal, I've brought you here. enrich and enrich stepped forward. Well done. Immortal Toya rubbed the siblings' heads. I cultivated a kind of peelless spirit orange in the black bamboo forest earlier. When this kind of orange ripens, its skin will automatically fall off. And the peel is in fact an important medicinal ingredient. The peel of the orange is actually an important medicinal ingredient. Today, your second mission is to go there and sweep the orange peels off the ground and collect them. After you finish, come to the Cultivation Heart Pavilion on the island and wait for me. Yes, Shurfu, they said in unison. As usual, follow the paper crane. If you run into any danger you can't handle, tear it to shreds, and Shurfu will immediately show up. Then, Immortal Toya stretched out his hand, and a paper crane appeared in his palm to guide the way. The two fellow brother and sister understood, bowed again, and left with the paper crane. Although Immortal Toya had picked up enrich and enrich, he had always regarded them as his own. Although he didn't have any children of his own, he already felt like a father. He had deliberately sent enrich and enrich to pick up grenade-throwing senior immortal to test him. Immortal Toya guessed that if senior immortal had really married in secret and was already a father, he would definitely have very complicated feelings when he saw enrich and enrich again. And just as Immortal Toya had expected, after luring enrich and enrich away, he saw the young man in white sink into thought with his chin in his hand. He was frowning slightly, and there was an indescribable complexity in his expression. It seemed that the true monarch's problem was really big. Immortal Toya blushed with shame in his heart. Actually, he didn't think that Senior Immortal was the kind of person who would cause trouble outside. But given the various signs at the moment, he couldn't help but be suspicious. Obviously, the senior had been under a lot of pressure these past few days. Immortal Toya couldn't help sighing with emotion in his heart. He rarely saw grenade-throwing Senior Immortal show such a sentimental expression. However, he did not have any direct evidence at the moment, so he had to follow Fu Wang's instructions and ask him about it step by step. Perfected Immortal? With the same smile on his face, Immortal Toya's call finally roused the young man in white from his meditation. I'm sorry, Brother Two. When I saw enrich and enrich just now, I thought of something and got distracted. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal rubbed his head and grinned. Immortal Toya. It's fine, Perfected Immortal, I understand. The pressure of being a father was definitely huge. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Immortal Toya pointed to the immortal boat on the shore. Perfected Immortal, please, let's talk on the boat. Alright. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal followed Immortal Toya. Noticing that the immortal boat was brand new, he couldn't help asking as he boarded it. By the way, Brother Two, did you buy this immortal boat recently? That's right. It was very cheap when I bought it. Immortal Toya nodded. At that moment, his expression suddenly changed, and he said in a very low voice, because the owner of the immortal boat shop has a woman outside, and she gave birth to a child. Now that the divorce is over, he's in a hurry to sell the money, so that he can divide the assets. Then Brother Two's luck is really good. It was very clear that the young man in white didn't understand what Immortal Toya was hinting at. So wasn't his question obvious enough? Immortal Toya scratched his head and thought for a bit, then decided to change his approach. This immortal boat was fully automatic, and the route had already been set up. After boarding the boat, the owner could drive it with a spell. It took about 15 minutes to travel from the shore of Yunlan Lake to Chrysanthemum Island in the middle of the lake. Halfway there, Immortal Toya suddenly said, Perfected immortal. Do you know the story of this Yunlin lake? What story? Grenade throwing senior immortal's curiosity was piqued. Before my ancestor officially took over this territory, the Cloud Mist Lake was originally the territory of the Nalan clan. At that time, the commander who was in charge of the Nalan clan was also an extraordinary person, and he was very famous in the area. My ancestors took a fancy to Yunlin Lake's feng shui and wanted to build an island as a base for refining elixirs. At that time, they discussed this with the Nalan clan many times, but to no avail. Until something happened. Grenade throwing senior immortal. The commander of the Nalan clan was cuckolded. Grenade throwing senior immortal. His wife had another man, and not only that, she was also pregnant, Immortal Toya said. At that time, the commander of the Nalan clan had actually been married to his wife for decades, but they didn't have any children. This was a huge blow to Commander Nalan. What happened after that? His wife was forced to get married because she was pregnant, and Commander Nalan divorced her, feeling great shame and heartache. Not long after that, he compromised with my ancestors and sold off Yunlin Lake and the surrounding land at a cheap price. Immortal Toya said with a look of reminiscence in his eyes. At this point in the story, Immortal Toya suddenly turned to Grenade throwing Senior Immortal and asked, Senior Immortal, have you heard of Nalan Monastery? I think I've heard of it. It's said that the founder of this monastery was Commander Nalan. Back then, after he divorced his wife, he was deeply grieved and was repeatedly rescued by an expert. After trying to commit suicide several times to no avail, he finally listened to the expert's advice, saw through the world of mortals, and opened a monastery in a remote mountain village far from his hometown. I never thought there would be such a story. Grenade throwing Senior Immortal sked. But come to think of it, who was that expert who rescued him so many times? That expert is the creator of the Sunflower Treasure book, Zen Master Sunflower. Speaking up to this point, Immortal Toya paused. After Commander Nalan fled to Buddhism, he also cultivated this method, and later gave himself a Taoist name, Nalan Hulin. Chapter 419. Listening to Immortal Toya's story, Grenade throwing Senior Immortal was lost in deep thought. On the Immortal boat, Immortal Toya quietly cast a sidelong glance at Senior Immortal next to him, a few beads of cold sweat silently running down his forehead. 90% of the story just now was true, and the remaining 10% was Immortal Toya exaggerating and imagining the events themselves. He used this method to tell the story of a sad man who had been cuckolded, who had divorced his wife out of resentment, and who had allowed her to marry someone else. After going through all kinds of tribulations, he had seen through life and death, and had seen through the world of mortals. Actually, Immortal Toya had always thought that while this story sounded very tragic, it didn't have a bad ending. At the very least, Commander Nalan had obtained a good release after this incident. If he was still alive now, his cultivation would definitely be unfathomable. But in the 100 years since he had inherited the ancestral land, Immortal Toya hadn't heard any more news about Zen Master Nalan. Perhaps he had already passed away. Senior Immortal, after listening to this story, do you have any thoughts? Immortal Toya turned his head slightly and asked. He felt that he had already given a clear enough hint this time. From his first Immortal Boat story to his second story about Commander Nalan, there were undoubtedly two key words that were mentioned the most. First, children, and second, marriage with a child. Of course, the most important key word was still marriage. This was already no longer a hint, but a blatant and explicit statement. Furthermore, it wasn't a real hammer, but a Muay Thai combination whirlwind hammer. After a moment of deep thought on the Immortal Boat, Grenade throwing Senior Immortal raised his head to look at Immortal Toya. Brother 2, I've just finished listening to your two stories. Immortal Toya. Senior Immortal, do you have anything to say? Grenade throwing Senior Immortal. From this ancestral land to this Immortal Boat, it seems that everything you've obtained, Brother 2, has been built on the misfortunes of other people's families? Immortal Toya. He was actually speechless. That's inauspicious. Do you want me to find a fortune teller I know to do a divination for you? My divination isn't accurate. The young man in white had a very serious look in his eyes as he looked at Immortal Toya. By the way, Brother Two, why do I feel like there's something wrong with the way you're looking at me today? It's nothing. You think too much, true monarch. We'll arrive at the island in front of us. I've asked the old auntie on the island to cook some dishes. Let's sit down and talk. Immortal Toya sighed in his heart. Now that plan number 2 had failed, he could only come up with another plan. And the third and final stratagem. If he didn't succeed, he would die trying. Brother Two, you specially cooked a dish? I'm just here to give you a gift. No need to be so polite, said Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. He had never been to Chrysanthemum Island before. Originally, he just wanted to take a stroll around the island before leaving. There were still 6 rings left on his hand. He still had to give them to Tsalian Jinren, 9 times man, and the others later. It won't take too long. I've already prepared an immortal car. We'll eat in it and show Senior Immortal around in passing, Immortal Toya said with a smile. All right then. It's rare for you to come. Brother Two, you're too polite. It was hard for Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal to refuse such hospitality, so he could only agree. The 2 of them landed on the island one after another. As far as the eye could see, Chrysanthemum Island was filled with meticulously arranged chrysanthemum gardens, which were divided according to color and species. From a distance, it gave off a poetic feeling. On a stone tablet at the entrance of the island was a poem written in gold. Picking chrysanthemums under the eastern fence, leisurely gazing upon the southern mountain, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took a deep breath and felt comfortable all over. The spirit chi on Chrysanthemum Island was dozens of times denser than in the city, not only because the spirit chrysanthemums here had a natural ability to absorb spirit chi, but also because of the island's unique feng shui. In fact, it was obvious that the Nalan clan had been a famous family back then. There had to be a reason why the Nalan clan had set their sights on Chrysanthemum Island and set up their entire clan here. If I wasn't in such a hurry today, I would definitely stay on the island. Brother Two, it's so comfortable here. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't help praising him. Immortal Toya laughed. Senior Immortal, you flatter me. There's plenty of time in the future. There's always a chance. If you want to suck chrysanthemums in the future, just let me know in advance, and I'll arrange everything. Suck chrysanthemums? One whiff of these spirit chrysanthemums of mine can prolong your life. There are people who suck cats and dogs out here, so sucking chrysanthemums at my place is actually very good. The 2 of them walked through the chrysanthemum maze on the island in silence. It was only then that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal realized that every chrysanthemum garden on the island was part of the maze. There was a flight restriction here, and it would be very difficult for anyone below the soul formation stage to get out once they got caught in the maze. This was a maze set up by our ancestors to protect the elixirs refined in the core alchemy room, Immortal Toya said. My Toya clan used to be a large clan that produced elixirs in bulk. Every year at the end of the year, we were too busy, so we would recruit some peripheral alchemists and have them live in the guest rooms on the outskirts of the island. But these outsiders always had dirty hands and feet on the island. After that, the maze was set up. But actually it's useless now that the legal system is comprehensive and surveillance is everywhere. Anyone with a brain won't break in at will. Immortal Toya shrugged and smiled slightly. Why didn't you get rid of the maze? Our ancestors set it up, and we've already applied for a patent. Now we call it an intangible cultural heritage. Previously, several people from Nanhan Nation came to me to learn how to set up a maze. I was afraid that they would say they were the ones who developed it, so I registered it ahead of time. I was thinking about opening up Chrysanthemum Island's tourism industry when I can't refine elixirs anymore. Isn't escape room now popular? This chrysanthemum maze is the selling point. Brother Two, you're as business-minded as ever. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal clicked his tongue. As they walked, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal finally saw an immortal car parked in front of them. At that moment, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't help asking, by the way, what did Brother to cook? Immortal Toya secretly patted his head. He had actually almost been led astray by Senior Immortal just now. He had forgotten what he was supposed to do. But now, he knew that his chance had come. It's just some home-cooked dishes, it's nothing. Immortal Toya stared at the young man in white next to him, his cold gaze giving grenade-throwing Senior Immortal a chill down his back. Mandarin duck hot pot. Wife cake. Husband and wife lung slice. At that moment, realization finally dawned on grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Brother too. I thought you were a little strange today. Are you hinting at something today? Senior Immortal, you finally figured it out. Immortal Toya was subconsciously delighted, but before he could rejoice, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's next words directly made him collapse. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sighed meaningfully and patted Immortal Toya on the shoulder. I know it hasn't been easy for you to raise Jean Sure and Insure all these years. It's indeed time for you to find a stepmother for these two children. Immortal Toya. No, it's not like that, Senior Immortal. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Don't be shy. I know a girl called Shinla who's pretty good. How about you add her on WeChat? Chapter 420. On a spirit mountain on the outskirts of Jinghua City, there was an elegant little pavilion that no one knew about. The area around the spirit mountain was covered in a powerful barrier, and anyone below true immortal level wouldn't be able to spy on this place. Even the most advanced scientific equipment couldn't detect any trace of this elegant little pavilion, because this was where General E, one of the 10 founding generals, usually stayed. But while it was official business, General E actually didn't need to worry about most things. His current state was the same as Marshal Zhang's in the family apartment. Both of them were among the 10 generals and powerful ones at that. In terms of martial prowess, General E and Marshal Zhang were already ranked first and second among the 10 generals. Furthermore, both of them thought they were number one. There were almost no missions for them to carry out on a daily basis, unless there was an SSS-level wanted criminal that they had no choice but to capture, such as the old devil from before. Then they would specially issue a mission for their help. 20 minutes ago, there was a tea table by the window in elegant little pavilion. The windows were very low, and through them, it felt like sitting at the top of the sky and looking down on all the other small mountains. General E held a cup of tea and cracked melon seeds. This bunch of people is really interesting. General E played with his phone. When Dharmaraja had made the group chat earlier, he had added his alternate account 9 times man into it. As for the origin of this chat group, it was a long story. I haven't asked General E yet. How did you get to know this bunch of juniors? Asked an old man with white hair and a beard sitting opposite General E. This old man's surname was Tang, and his first name was Chen. He was General Yi's trusted aide, and also elegant little pavilion's butler and gardener. Once General E received a mission from the top, he would be gone for more than half a month, or even several months. Someone had to personally take care of the flower fields near elegant little pavilion. When people got older, they especially liked to take care of flowers and plants, which General E had previously summed up as the hobby of the elderly. However, after joining grenade-throwing Senior Immortals chat group, General E had developed a second hobby, which was pretending to be cute and chatting with the group. I met them on a mission before. It wasn't convenient for me to expose my identity, so I pretended to be a junior with the Taoist named 9 times in one night, who is actually my adopted son. General E stared at the screen without turning and couldn't help laughing. But this kid has never been interested in cultivation, and is just a good-for-nothing golden core cultivator. After that mission, I became acquainted with grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, and after several requests, I was able to join the group. When I don't have time to meet him, I entrust this foster son of mine called 9 times man to go on my behalf. General E actually has an adopted son. This is the first I've heard of this. General E actually has an adopted son. This is the first time I've heard of this. Tang E of. E General E I of Immortal E. Of the core cultivators are of man E, the Immortals sect, of E of is of the E of sect. Old Tang broke out in a sweat. But General E, your adopted son 9 times man is only at the golden core stage. Are you sure you won't be exposed? General Yi shook his head. In terms of appearance, of course not. Back then, this old man specially used a face-changing pill based on 9 times man's face. Anyone below true immortal level won't be able to see through it even with the heavenly eye. In terms of aura, my adopted son has the golden talisman I gave him. As for temperament, there's even less to worry about. My adopted son 9 times man isn't interested in cultivation, but he's a qualified actor. Old Tang continued to wipe at his sweat. Actor? That's right. Although he's a minor character in the show business, he's passionate about his career. Furthermore, he refuses to help me arrange everything for him. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a matter of minutes for me to make a phone call and promote him? General Yi said. Earlier, that junior in the group said he wanted to give me a gift. It's not convenient for me to leave the mountain now, so I'm going to ask 9 times man to help me deal with it. Old Tang. The people in this group are all righteous people, which I admire very much. Moreover, everyone's hearts are connected and we share weal and woe. In this day and age, there aren't many juniors like this anymore. Usually, it's quite interesting to listen to these juniors talk about the cultivation circle's gossip in the group. Old Tang nodded. That's right, most of the juniors nowadays are too impetuous. The current era couldn't compare to the era when people cultivated one step at a time. Cultivators below the golden core stage could use all kinds of elixirs to speed up their cultivation, which gave rise to a natural sense of superiority for the sons of rich families. This sense of superiority was bound to have a very serious impact on their minds. Before he had been transferred here to work as a gardener for General Yi, Old Tang had also been engaged in research on education, and had been an opponent of taking accelerated drugs to advance realms. But that was already a long time ago. Now, as long as one had the aptitude and resources, it would only take a short 20 years to reach the golden core stage. This would have been unthinkable 1,000 years ago. Old Tang felt that if there really was such a thing as knowledge from the afterlife, that group of golden core cultivators, who had painstakingly cultivated for hundreds of years, but in the end had no hope of breaking through to the nascent soul stage and died of old age, would most likely be so angry that they would throw open their coffins and jump out. Even Newton couldn't keep them down. So when he heard what General Yi said, Old Tang couldn't help nodding. It would be great if there were more juniors like this in our modern cultivation circle. Old Tang is right. Although the people in this group are all juniors, they aren't ordinary people. I've heard of almost every one of them. But, saying this, General Yi's eyes suddenly narrowed slightly. There's actually another person in this group who I'm very interested in. So far, I haven't been able to verify this person's true identity. Old Tang chuckled. Someone who can interest General Yi? It looks like this person isn't simple. General Yi nodded. Everyone in the group calls this person Ling Junren. But his real realm isn't at the perfected person realm. This is just a customary title. Everyone in the group respects this Ling Junren very much, and is afraid of offending him. This old man once sent people to make indirect inquiries, and investigate this person's identity from various angles. Old Tang was curious. And the result? General Yi sighed. It's all mosaic. Old Tang. Chapter 421. Why is there a mosaic? Old Tang was puzzled. At first, I also suspected that something might have gone wrong, but I later realized that no matter what kind of information it was, it would turn into a mosaic in my hands. So this old man now suspects that this senior might have used some kind of spell, General Yi said. What kind of spell? I don't know yet. General Yi shook his head. At first, I thought it was just a smokescreen or an illusion. At my current realm, as long as I open my heavenly eye, there's no spell that can hide from me, unless the level of this person's spell surpasses mine. Old Tang sucked in a cold breath. A spell surpassing a true immortal's level? That's right. General Yi nodded. 5th level soul formation, 6th level perfected being, 7th level itinerant immortal, 8th level true immortal. Of course, this old man has also heard that level 8 spells aren't the limit for true immortals, and that a small number of true immortals can use ninth-grade transcendent spells that surpass level 8. It's very likely that what this senior Ling is using is a ninth-grade transcendent spell. Old Tang immediately understood. If even General E can't detect the smokescreen this senior has used, then it's really possible that what General E says is true. This senior might be a great expert who can use a ninth-grade transcendent spell. But has General E ever thought that there might be another possibility? This old man knows what you want to say. General E smiled and pinched his mustache. You think this senior Ling might be a venerated immortal, don't you? Old Tang nodded. To tell you the truth, I indeed have this thought. But I think you're worrying too much. It's simply impossible, General E said in a low voice. General E, can you tell me why? It's true that there are indeed venerated immortals in this world, because they did exist before. But after so many years, our Huaxiao nation has joined forces with dozens of powerful countries to search for them. And we've never found any clues. Even if it's only the immortal Jin Yuan who stepped into the venerated immortal realm recorded in our nation's historical records, that's just a legend. No one has ever seen a living senior of this realm in the world. For us cultivators, the realm of cultivation is for longevity. Although the theory of the great Tao of eternal life has been mentioned a long time ago, it is indeed too illusory and simply impossible. Even those seniors in the immortal venerable realm are just a pile of bones buried underground. Moreover, no one in our era will cultivate to the immortal venerable realm. What do you mean? Elder Tang was confused. General E said meaningfully. Rumor has it that if you want to become a venerated immortal, you must undergo the samsara spirit tribulation. However, in order to pass the cycle of reincarnation, one would need to consume an enormous amount of spiritual energy. In this era, although the speed of cultivation was fast, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was not as abundant as it was in the past. Sooner or later, it would be exhausted. Maybe a few thousand years, maybe 10,000 years later. Old Tang understood. This was the theory of the end of days that had been proposed in the current world. He remembered that a singer had written a song with the theme of the end of days, which was still fresh in Elder Tang's memory. The lyrics were as follows. When the world had no edges and corners, when the flow of spiritual energy stopped. When time stands still, day and night are not separated when the era of spiritual power disappeared. The most important thing was that the theory of the end of days wasn't nonsense, and had already gained the support of many bigwig experts from all over the world. This topic was a little heavy and sad, and for a moment, the two old men in elegant little pavilion fell silent. Although their positions were different, they had both experienced major historical events and witnessed countless epics in the cultivation world. They had also witnessed Huaxiao Nation's construction step by step, and had transcended time and time to the present. The end wasn't what they wanted to see. After a few minutes, General Yi's tense expression finally relaxed. He sipped his tea and calmed his thoughts, then couldn't help smiling. Old Tang, this topic is too heavy, we shouldn't discuss it. Who knows what will happen in the future? Maybe things will turn for the better. You're right, General E. Old Tang nodded. Back to the topic of Senior Ling. There's one more thing this old man hasn't said. General E said. There's actually a very simple reason why I don't think this Senior Ling is a venerated immortal. Old Tang, you have to know that supreme experts at the venerated immortal realm all have something called structure in their hearts. This type of senior has very high standards, and if they really were able to live through that era, they basically wouldn't join chat groups. Old Tang. Can Old Tang imagine a venerated immortal senior chatting online at home and eating cheap snacks like spicy sticks and crispy noodle snacks every day? Generally asked. Old Tang shook his head weakly. Indeed, I can't imagine it. That's why this Ling Jinren can't be a venerated immortal. Clutching his phone, General E was actually a little depressed in his heart. If he could be a venerated immortal with this level of wisdom, this old man would have gone through the samsara spirit tribulation 1,000 years ago. Old Tang. If I have the chance, this old man will definitely find this Ling Jinren and exchange blows with him personally. General Yi's eyes were deep in thought, and he quickly waved his hand. Let's not talk about this, it's very annoying. Old Tang smiled. How about I play chess with General E? No. General E opened a music app on his phone. Come on, listen to a song first to calm down. This is a song that my adopted son 9 times man sang a while ago, expressing his dream of pursuing the entertainment industry. Good. I'm all ears. Old Tang nodded seriously. After a delay of about 2 seconds, the prelude to the song started playing. Then, a voice directly pierced Old Tang's eardrums like a thunderclap. Chasing dreams, chasing dreams, chasing dreams of show business, chasing dreams. We are pure. Old Tang was directly stunned. General E. How is it, Old Tang? Old Tang. General E. Tell me the truth. If you don't, this old man will get angry. Old Tang was shaken, and he rubbed his temples. The prelude is very passionate, it's a good song. General E laughed. Ha. This old man knew that Old Tang's taste is indeed the same as mine. Old Tang. General E. This song is very popular online. And even you, Old Tang, think it's good. Do you know what Dubon's rating for it is? Old Tang shook his head a little fearfully. General E held up 2 fingers. Old Tang. This old man was furious at that time. If it wasn't for my adopted son stopping me, this Dubon would have already turned into bean paste. General E sighed deeply. In today's society, if a song isn't as popular as someone else's, they give out bad reviews. Those professional players can't beat anyone else in a game. But they say they have cheats. This old man is very disappointed. Old Tang. Chapter 422. A lot of things that Wang Ling couldn't have imagined had happened in 1 week. Wang Ling felt that there was a 90% chance that it was because the Great Fortune spell was still in effect. Why had Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal accidentally put the ring on his ring finger? Why had Dharmaraja happened to discover him giving the ring to someone else later? And now, because of a small misunderstanding about leaving the group, Dharmaraja had personally come to apologize with crispy noodle snacks. At this point, Wang Ling completely understood. It turned out that it was all because of crispy noodle snacks. Wang Ling secretly wiped at his sweat. Sure enough, he couldn't use the Great Fortune spell casually in the future. Although he truly loved crispy noodle snacks, he couldn't cause all kinds of conflicts and unnecessary misunderstandings because of true love. Also, for some reason, Wang Ling had the feeling that someone was constantly investigating him. Although he didn't need to worry at all with the Great Shielding spell, there were times when he would have something like a 6th sense for danger. The stronger this feeling was, the more likely it was that there was a problem. Wang Ling lowered his eyes, his expression a little solemn. He felt that something big was about to happen. But the point was, why was his daily life always so messy? He just wanted to quietly buy a fried dough stick and a novelty egg, eat them, and then go to school in peace. On Chrysanthemum Island, after Immortal Toya's crazy wave of explicit and implicit hints, it was clear that the situation was completely out of control. Although Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had also sensed something, it was completely different from what the brothers in the group were really concerned about. In the Immortal car, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was already in no mood to tour Chrysanthemum Island, and didn't even touch the food on the table. He blamed himself, and felt that he was very stupid. He had never expected that after all these explicit and implicit hints from his good brother Immortal Toya, it would actually take him so long to realize that Immortal Toya wanted to find a girlfriend. Furthermore, this girlfriend wasn't the kind he could just casually find. At the same time, she had to shoulder the responsibility of being the future wife of Chrysanthemum Island's lord, and take good care of Jean Shur and Yin Shur. Senior Immortal. Actually, it's not as complicated as you think. The corners of Immortal Toya's mouth twitched slightly, as he felt completely confused. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Brother 2, don't interrupt. I'm serious. Immortal Toya. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was very excited and grabbed Immortal Toya's hand. Brother 2, don't say anything. As Jean Shur and Yin Shur's godfather, I've always wanted to do something for them. Immortal Toya. Senior Immortal, it's not like that. Grenade throwing Senior Immortal. I told you not to interrupt. Immortal Toya. Grenade throwing Senior Immortal. I know a lot of people have pursued you before. For example, Headmaster Xingye of the Seven Stars sect. But that was in the past. You can consider the Shimla girl I mentioned to you before. If it really doesn't work out, there's actually a second candidate. That's my sister, grenade-throwing mother. Immortal Toya. Speaking up to this point, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body involuntarily shivered. Immortal Toya saw this scene. Immortal Toya had only met Senior Immortal's sister, grenade-throwing mother, once before. She was a female cultivator who had returned from abroad with a straightforward personality, and was even a little staunch and open-minded. Sunglasses, curly hair, a midriff-bearing top, low-slung pants. This was Immortal Toya's first impression of this little sister. Because she lived abroad all year round, even her elder brother, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, only saw her a few times a year. I've always wanted to bring my sister back from abroad. If Brother 2 is willing to accept this unrestrained evildoer, that would actually be the best. That way, I'll have a reason to let her live in the country. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal spoke excitedly, and Immortal Toya sweated profusely as he listened. In all his years of refining elixirs, he had never sweated as much as he had today, sitting in front of a furnace at such a high temperature. True monarch, can you listen to what I have to say? All right, go ahead. Brother 2. Immortal Toya took a deep breath, then plucked up his courage to speak. Senior Immortal, who gave you the ring on the ring finger of your left hand? Oh, that. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal hadn't expected Immortal Toya to ask this question. But since he had already promised Wang Ling, there was no way he would tell him. A friend of mine gave it to me. He refined a batch of holy weapon magic rings, and gave me one. He also asked me to take some back with me, to give to the brothers and sisters in the group. He said this very naturally, and Immortal Toya couldn't detect anything out of the ordinary at all. Just as he said this, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal also handed him a magic ring. This is for you, Brother 2. Immortal Toya took the magic ring, and examined it carefully. It was actually a third-class holy weapon magic ring. Furthermore, looking at the workmanship and details, Immortal Toya felt that this person was definitely very skilled in refining weapons. The most important thing about a magic ring was its color, and there were too many details on this magic ring. Although it was pitch black all over, when Immortal Toya sensed the powerful spirit power surging inside the magic ring, he could indeed sense how much effort this great weaponsmith had put into it. The artificer must have expended a lot of effort to create this magic ring. Although the structure of the magic ring didn't seem complicated, there was a saying that went, "Great Tao is the simplest." Many high-grade magic rings with excellent performance actually didn't look particularly outstanding. Fancy magic treasures had never been the mainstream in the cultivation circle. Simple and practical things were the real deal. After examining the magic ring for a while, Immortal Toya sighed in his heart. He felt that this was probably the truth of the matter. In fact, Senior Immortal wasn't someone who was good at deceiving his friends, or lying to begin with. But there was one thing that Immortal Toya still didn't understand, and he couldn't help asking, why did Senior Immortal wear the magic ring on his ring finger? In my clan, this is a form of respect for an important friend. For magic treasures like jewelry, no matter what they look like, you have to wear them on your person for 7 days without taking them off as a sign of respect. If I wear it on the ring finger of my left hand, a lot of people will actually misunderstand that I'm married. But in fact, this is just a form of etiquette in my clan, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal explained. Immortal Toya nodded. So that's how it is. Never too old to learn, never too old to live. Then this time, Dharmaraj's misunderstanding was really big. When Senior Immortal left later, he still had to prepare an excuse to explain the whole story. Why do I feel like Brother 2 is very concerned about the ring on my left ring finger? Senior Immortal is now at the heart of the cultivation circle. In a situation where there's no news of Senior Immortal's wedding, it's hard to avoid misunderstandings about a ring on your left ring finger. Has Senior Immortal ever thought of applying some kind of invisibility liquid on the ring? Immortal Toya said earnestly, I accept Brother Two's suggestion. I'll definitely apply it later. It's indeed not good to cause misunderstandings. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded hurriedly. But this ring is very special to me, and I won't take it off until I find someone I particularly admire. I also didn't expect Senior Immortal's weaponsmith friend to be so generous, casually giving away a ring of this quality. His magnanimity is really admirable. With one look, you can tell that he spent a long time refining this ring. Chapter 423. This weekend looked very lively to Wang Ling. But to Little Silver, it was a little bored. Ever since he had become infatuated with human chat tools, Little Silver had been holding his phone almost all the time. Holy beasts didn't need to rest at all. As long as Little Silver wanted to, he could stay awake for hundreds or even thousands of years. There was no such thing as burning the liver all night. Even if his liver was damaged, the heart of a holy beast could immediately restore it. But today's chat group was very strange, because no one actually spoke up. In the past, even when everyone in the group was busy, they would occasionally send emojis or fight pictures or something. At Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's house, Little Silver sat cross-legged on the sofa and stared fixedly at his phone screen. He tried sending a playful blue moon emoji, which had been very popular online recently. Then he stared at his phone for a few minutes, but no one responded. So boring. With no one to chat with, Little Silver felt a deep sense of loneliness and despair. But a few minutes later, an unfamiliar ID called Immortal 2 suddenly added him as a friend in private. His profile picture was actually a woman's lip print. And the reason for the request was, "Your blood fascinates me." Little Silver's eyes narrowed slightly. His identity shouldn't have been exposed. Furthermore, he had only recently applied for a QQ chat account, so his level was actually very low. Furthermore, he wouldn't take the initiative to add other people, and generally speaking, no one would take the initiative to add him with this kind of low-level account. Little Silver looked carefully at the account details of this Immortal 2, and realized that this person's level was actually 3 crowns. This level was already higher than many of the people in the chat group. Then this person's signature was as follows. How nostalgic for the mouth of the past, the warmth on the tip of the tongue. SS. Little Silver's hands trembled. Could this be the human legend of a romantic encounter? No way. It couldn't be such a coincidence, right? When Little Silver had been bored, he had looked up online how to use the internet to have fun, and he had seen all kinds of answers online, such as watching TV shows or playing games. The former could kill some time, but games were really boring for Little Silver. For a liver god like him, who almost didn't need to sleep, even if he was a little crazy when he drew cards, he still had a lot of time. In terms of time, who could outlast him? So in contrast, Little Silver still preferred to chat and browse the Jihu and cultivation forums to see if there was any latest gossip or breaking news. Everyone had different preferences when it came to using the internet. Even sacred beasts were no exception. Apart from the above options, Little Silver also saw another option, which was the so-called shake it. As long as people in the same city shook their phones at the same time, it was possible for them to link to the chat accounts of the fated person, and then a lot of indescribable stories would happen. However, this was not right either. I didn't even shake it. Why did he deliver himself to his doorstep? Crossing his arms, Little Silver stared at the screen. His heart raced and he suddenly felt a little nervous. Well, there's a first time for everything. You have to calm your mind. Little Silver admonished himself in his heart before he reached out and pressed the agree button. Just when he didn't know what to say, this girl actually sent him a red lip and left him 2 words. Do you want a date? Holy shit. Little Silver abruptly took a deep breath. Were all human little sisters nowadays so straightforward and open-minded? On the other side, after Loopy Toad had successfully added Little Silver's account, it straightaway clutched its stomach and laughed like a dog on the floor. A holy beast was nothing more than this. Its awareness of tricks was really too weak. In the end, I'm still too young. I'm easily fooled. Wang Ling also saw this play out, but didn't do anything to stop it. In his view, This was a practical education for a newcomer from an old senior, who had already officially entered human society and had a certain awareness of tricks. And Little Silver was clearly the newcomer in this education class. As long as he didn't go overboard, Wang Ling felt that teasing him was only good and harmless. Loopy Toad stared at the screen. It had already been a full 5 minutes since the message had been sent, but Little Silver still hadn't replied at all. Looking at the time, Loopy Toad guessed that Little Silver was probably researching online how to respond during this time. Sure enough, after a while Little Silver sent a message. "Sorry, miss. A delivery just arrived." Little Silver had just checked online how to deal with this kind of situation. But even though he had found something, he realized that he had already wasted a lot of time. Then, Little Silver checked online again and realized that in general, if you stood a girl up for a long time and didn't reply to her message, your favorability toward her would drop significantly. So he simply made up a lie. "AI, you're still too young." The moment it saw the message, Loopy Toad sneered. It knew that Little Silver was definitely lying, and was most likely very nervous right now. Although it didn't know exactly what Little Silver had found online, Loopy Toad wasn't flustered at all. It straightaway wrote the next message and sent it over. "It's fine. I was also taking a shower just now. The fine foam ran through my black hair, and now it's silky smooth." Holding the phone, Little Silver's Adam's apple bobbed inexplicably. "Can I hear your voice?" Loopy Toad chuckled. Little Silver's question was clearly a test of its gender. Loopy Toad had asked Wang Ming to help it set up this account, and it was a limited edition pretty account. Not only was its level 3 crowns, it also had all kinds of unimaginable functions and permissions, such as the ability to restrict other people from deleting their messages, and so on. Actually, Wang Ming had initially prepared this account for Wang Ling, but Wang Ling had disliked it because it was too high profile, so he hadn't used it until now. Although it hadn't been logged in for many years, it could be considered useful in Loopy Toad's hands recently. Loopy Toad remembered that this pretty account had a function called Super Voice Changer. Ordinary voice changers didn't sound natural, and most of them were the same, which made it very easy for people to recognize them. But this voice changer was very powerful, enough to pass off the fake as the real thing. After activating the voice changer, Loopy Toad directly pressed the voice button and recorded a message. "Little brother, do you want to see my legs?" Then it let go. That originally deep voice instantly turned into a soft and cute girl's voice. Little Silver's heart trembled, and he felt his beast's blood boil. In the next moment, the fairy, on the other side, actually directly sent him a flash image. Little Silver knew that flash images couldn't be saved, and could only be looked at for 5 seconds before they were automatically deleted. And most of the time, flash images were used to send explosive content. Little Silver swallowed and clicked on the flash image. Then, a dog leg covered in green fur appeared in front of him. Chapter 424. Little Silver stared at the screen, lost in deep thought for a long time. For some reason, he felt like he had seen this green dog leg somewhere before. After going through a long cycle of reflexes, Little Silver finally understood. This lackey, wasn't it Master's dog? As expected. Have I been cheated? Little Silver felt his holy beast heart hurt. What was righteousness? What was love? Where was the basic trust between beasts? On the sofa, Little Silver looked up at the ceiling and roared in despair in his heart as tears streamed down his cheeks. At that moment, the villa door opened. When grenade-throwing Senior Immortal returned home, he saw the silver-haired young man pounding the ground and crying bitterly. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was startled by this scene. "Brother Little Silver, you..." He had just returned from delivering a ring and hadn't expected to see this scene. Little Silver raised his head, sparkling and translucent tears streaking down his snow-white face, which made people feel pity for him. I'm jilted." Actually, it wasn't just about falling out of love. Being cheated was the key. But no matter what, Little Silver couldn't open his mouth, because as a holy beast, he had actually been flirted with by a dog. If this matter were to spread out, it would be too embarrassing. Although he didn't know what was going on, grenade-throwing senior immortal still walked over and patted Little Silver on the shoulder comfortingly. "Brother Little Silver, there's a first time for everything, get over it." When a person was extremely sad, the more they were comforted, the louder they might cry. Little Silver was naturally the same. Grenade-throwing senior immortal let go of her, a little at a loss. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have comforted her. It had been a drizzle when they had just entered. Now it was a storm. Ignoring the crying Little Silver, grenade-throwing senior immortal turned to the bathroom to get a wash basin and put it in front of Little Silver. Little Silver looked at him with tears streaming down his face. What are you doing?" Grenade-throwing senior immortal smiled. "Catch the tears. The sacred beast's tears have medicinal value, so don't waste them." Little Silver. A few seconds later, Little Silver sniffled and cried even more miserably with a wah. "Why is the whole world targeting me, Little Silver?" On the other side, Wang Ling had watched the entire process of Loopy Toad teasing Little Silver. He could already imagine how Little Silver had gone from the moment he had mistakenly thought that he had added a little sister. From the moment he had been wild with joy to the moment he was now on the verge of collapse, as his emotions had fluctuated like a roller coaster. Actually, he hadn't been idle during this time. He had downloaded the mock midterm exam papers from last year and the year before in the class group file. This year's questions would definitely be different, and Teacher Pan had already said earlier that they would be much more difficult. No teacher would be stupid enough to copy the exam questions exactly as they had been in the past. However, even if he knew that the difficulty of this year's exam had increased, the exam papers from last year and the year before were still useful as a reference. He was now trying to cross out 90% of the questions that he wouldn't get tested on, and then sort out the ones that might make the exam more difficult. For example, in the midterm paper of the Talisman course, the question asked about the synthesis formula of the flame reaction of the Buddha's fiery lotus last year and the year before that. This question would definitely not be asked again this year. Another example was in the social studies course, where there was a discussion about a popular cartoon that had been reported by the public and taken off the shelves without a clear classification system for domestic cartoons. Wang Ling's intuition told him that this question would probably be tested this year, and it definitely wouldn't just be a discussion question worth 10 points. It was very likely that it would be upgraded to a 25-point essay in the social studies course, and the student would have to write an essay of 1,000 words or less. That was because the same thing had actually happened recently. Wang Ling remembered that a few days ago, Dopey Gua had told him that a horror novel that he liked very much had been reported to have been taken off the shelves. He had heard that it was because the results were too good, and the jealous peers had reported it to have been taken off the shelves. This was actually a common occurrence in the news, but because similar incidents were at the top of the trending topics, they were infinitely magnified. Wang Ling silently made a mark on the side of this question as a key review topic. Of course, Wang Ling's focus wasn't on how high his score would be, but on summarizing and sorting out the questions that might be tested one by one, and then figuring out how much more difficult they would be this year. Then he would combine the average scores of last year and the year before that to guess this year's average score. For Wang Ling, average scores were the key. If he got too high or too bad, Father Wang would dock his pocket money. About 5 minutes later, he was done summarizing and sorting. Wang Ling looked at the time. It was already 7 o'clock in the evening. It had been almost 7 hours since Daoist Guang had received the computer. The notebook that grenade-throwing senior immortal had bought for the elderly could already be considered a fairly simple one, and the tutorials inside were easy to understand and very detailed. Wang Ling wondered how Daoist Guang was doing now. Just as he was thinking this, he suddenly felt his wristwatch vibrate. It was a private chat from grenade-throwing senior immortal. "Brother Ling, are you there? Come quickly. Senior Daoist Guang is online." Because it was grenade-throwing senior immortal who had registered the chat account, it was also bound to his other cell phone number. So as soon as Daoist Guang went online, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's cell phone would immediately receive a text notification. After receiving the private chat from Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Wang Ling opened the three of them private group, and sure enough, he found that Daoist Guang's chat profile picture had already changed from gray to color, which was proof that Daoist Guang was online. Senior Guang? Daoist Guang? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal tried at. This old man is here. It took Daoist Guang 3 minutes to reply with just 3 words. It was very obvious that this was a very difficult learning path. Is the computer working? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sent a grinning emoji. After another 5 minutes, Daoist Guang replied, "It's working. This old man typing is slow." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't help laughing. Actually, Senior can try using voice. Another 3 minutes, Daoist Guang. No noisy. After that, Daoist Guang tried using voice input. After listening to it, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal found that there was indeed a lot of noise inside. Only then did he remember that Wang Ling seemed to have told him before that Daoist Guang's soul space was an island with the ebb and flow of tides, and the sound of rolling waves, as well as all kinds of insects and birds in the rainforest. However, this wasn't an unsolvable problem. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal swiftly recovered. How about this, Senior? I'll have Brother Ling burn a recording studio for you later. Wang Ling. Chapter 425. He thought it was a little exaggerated to directly burn down a recording studio. Furthermore, a recording studio with good soundproofing actually cost a lot of money. Of course, money might not be a problem for Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal at all. But if he really wanted to burn down a recording studio, it would definitely be a spectacular scene. Daoist Guang could only blame himself for typing too slowly, and it seemed like he wouldn't be able to type fast in a short period of time. The only way was to familiarize himself with the keys on the keyboard and practice typing. Generally, people who were good at typing basically typed blindly. Is there any other way? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked in the group. Slow typing speed was indeed a problem. Without voice input, it would take an average of 1 minute to type a word. This was too tiring. Wang Ling stared at the screen and pondered. He had just wondered whether he should enchant a keyboard and send it to Daoist Guang. That way, Daoist Guang would only need to say what he wanted to type. He didn't even need voice input for the keyboard to move on its own. 3 minutes later, Daoist Guang replied, "Yes, wait." Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal waited quietly, completely unaware of what method Daoist Guang would use. After another 10 minutes or so, Daoist Guang finally replied, "Gentlemen, I'm ready." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that Daoist Guang's typing speed had really increased a lot. Daoist Guang typed swiftly. Now this old man can already communicate normally. Senior Ling and little friend Grenade-throwing, don't worry. Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal were very surprised. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. How did Senior Daoist Guang do it? I just thought of this method. Daoist Guang replied. This old man mainly cultivated the water magic. And I'm not bragging. I can say that I've already reached the pinnacle of water magic. Wang Ling nodded in front of the screen. He indeed wasn't bragging. To be able to create an island space like this and integrate one's soul into it, this indeed wasn't something an ordinary person could do. Furthermore, it was very obvious that Daoist Guang had meticulously designed this island space. It was surrounded by the sea not only for the sake of aesthetics, but also to nourish and stabilize the soul. In order to set up such an island space, Daoist Guang's water spells had to be at least at the peak of grade 8. Furthermore, Wang Ling judged that it was very likely that Daoist Guang would be able to cast grade 9 water spells. Although most of the perfected immortals in the perfected immortal realm could cultivate up to the 8th stage, it wasn't as if there were no perfected immortals who could cast 9th stage transcendent spells. Of course, given Daoist Guang's current state as a soul, it would be very difficult for him to unleash level 8 soul power. If he was at his peak, he might have a chance. Now that things had come to this point, Daoist Guang couldn't be bothered to beat around the bush and directly revealed the truth. Just now, I used a level 6 water spell in the space, the Aquatic Beast Form spell. Aquatic Beast Form formula? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal vaguely felt like he had heard of this spell before. Senior, may I ask if this spell can turn you into a sea spirit beast? Not bad. Across the screen, Taoist Guang nodded and typed quickly. But I rarely use this spell, because my beast form is very ugly. Just now my beast form was the deep sea spirit octopus, and now I have almost 100 tentacles typing on the keyboard. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Wang Ling. Moreover, there's another big problem. After using this technique, although my typing speed becomes faster, it's still very slow. But the keyboard will be sticky. Do you have any cleaning tools? Burn some for me. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't help laughing. Senior, you can wash it directly with water. This elderly phone I bought for you is completely waterproof. Taoist Guang nodded. Oh good. That's fine. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Then can we start now? Of course, this is what I promised. Taoist Guang laughed and replied. Then let's start with the Immortal's treasure house. Staring at the screen, Wang Ling's expression turned a little more serious. Actually, when it comes to discovering the entrance to the Immortal's treasure house, it actually has something to do with the Gate Between Worlds. The Gate Between Worlds is a world-defying magic weapon created by Immortal Jin Yuan, and has been modified 20 times. So it goes without saying how powerful it is. Ever since news of the Immortal's treasure house leaked out, countless cultivators have searched all over the world for it, but to no avail. I did a little research online before. So far, even in an age where science and technology are so advanced, no one has been able to find the whereabouts of the treasure house by combining cultivation techniques with technology. No one has even been able to find Immortal Jin Yuan's shadow. So at that time, I've been thinking about a question. Could Immortal Jin Yuan have hidden the Immortal's treasure house in the Gate Between Worlds? As soon as Taoist Guang said this, both Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal were instantly very interested. Actually, it wasn't impossible for the situation to be as Taoist Guang said. Because theoretically speaking, the Immortal's treasure house that Immortal Jin Yuan had created was a great world that contained all his wealth in his life. And such a great world usually had to rely on a world-defying magic weapon. For example, this method was a little like another magic treasure that Immortal Jin Yuan had invented, the purple gold gourd. The difference was that the purple gold gourd was just a holy weapon, and the world hidden inside it was also a small world. Only divine weapons and world-defying magic weapons could contain a large world. So here was the problem. The purple gold gourd had been invented for the sake of a small world from the very beginning. It was originally a spatial storage magic weapon. But the purpose of the Gate Between Worlds which Immortal Jin Yuan had invented was clearly very different. The Gate Between Worlds was more like a link between the human world and the demon world. If you had to categorize it, it could only be classified as a spatial teleportation magic weapon. One was storage, the other was teleportation. The difference was too big. Wang Ling wasn't the only one who had thought of this problem. After Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had also thought of it, he immediately sorted it out and raised this question. Actually, I also thought of the problem you were thinking of back then. So after that, I spent a lot of time traveling through the Gate Between Worlds. I always wondered if Immortal Jin Yuan had embedded the great world of the Immortal's treasure house in the demon world. And it might have appeared in some corner of the demon world in the form of a secret land. As he typed, Taoist Guang recalled this past event in his mind. But unfortunately, when I searched the demon world back then, I didn't find any clues about the Immortal's treasure house. It wasn't until I was leaving the Gate Between Worlds that I met someone. Who was it? Asked Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. You might not know this person, but you're definitely familiar with his senior brother. Taoist Guang typed. His senior brother is General Yi, one of the 10 founding generals of Huaxiu Nation. General Yi has a junior brother? Taoist Guang nodded. This person is evil sword god Chun Nanxian, known as the 10-meter sword god in the current cultivation world. This time, there are 3 more chapters to update, 2 of which are for little sister Dreamfall Muxi. This time, there's absolutely no mistake. Underscore 3. Chapter 426. The name Chen Nanxian was too unfamiliar to him. Nowadays, people in the cultivation circle basically called each other by their Taoist names, and many people ignored their real names. This Chen Nanxian was a classic example. He didn't recognize his name, but when it came to the titles 10-meter sword god and evil sword god, grenade-throwing senior immortal was instantly enlightened. It was actually him. In front of the screen, grenade-throwing senior immortal had a stunned expression on his face, because this evil sword god's history was even more terrifying than the old devil's. Everything he did was shocking, but the ripples he caused weren't as strong as the old devil's. Back then, when the old devil had led the Guapai army to invade the National Palace, the media had exaggerated the story and later classified it as a massive terrorist attack. Thanks to modern cultivation technology, the whole nation knew about it when the media reported it. But the title of Evil Sword God didn't leave a deep impression on modern people. At Evil Sword God's time, the construction of the Spirit Energy Information System had just started, and it was actually incomplete. It was clearly far from enough to rely solely on the power of the paper media. Even the first time grenade-throwing senior immortal had come into contact with this evil sword god was when he flipped through the old newspaper archive, managed by the Cultivation Library in Shanghai City. At the time, he had been investigating other incidents when he happened to see the old newspaper about this evil sword god. Grenade-throwing senior immortal clearly remembered that the newspaper had published all 3 of evil sword god's crimes at the time. The first was the hostage case. In the first incident, evil sword god had still stood on the side of justice, but the media had clearly put double quotation marks around this justice. Because evil sword god's justice was what he believed to be righteous. The hostage case that had shocked the cultivation circle back then fully demonstrated this point. At the time, Huaxiao Nation had just been founded, and domestic security measures weren't comprehensive, so there were still some cultivators who broke the law. At the time, someone had robbed a bank and taken everyone in the bank hostage. Sword in hand, Evil Sword God had charged in alone and killed all the robbers. He had also wiped out the hostages who had been involved in the incident. Evil Sword God believed that cowards didn't have the right to live in this world. The second was the murder of his Shifu. Grenade-throwing senior immortal had been completely baffled by the report on this incident, because the newspaper at the time hadn't been very detailed, and it had taken up the least amount of space. But combined with the clues provided by Taoist Guang, grenade-throwing senior immortal instantly understood something. In this shift-killing case, the person Evil Sword God had killed wasn't just his own Shifu, but also General Yi's Shifu. News like this that involved the meritorious generals of the founding of the country would definitely be restricted. Grenade-throwing senior immortal hadn't understood at the time, but now that he thought about it, he understood everything. As for the third case, it was the revenge case. After the first 2 major incidents, Evil Sword God's reputation in the cultivation circle had plummeted. In an era of the rule of law, modern society increasingly disapproved of this sort of tyranny. Flustered and exasperated, Evil Sword God Chen Nanxian resolved to take revenge. That night, Evil Sword God killed all the media people who had exposed him, and then disappeared in an atmosphere of terror. In the 3-person chat group, grenade-throwing senior immortal recounted this period of history, but this history had also been blocked, because it had to do with Evil Sword. There was no information on Evil Sword God online. It was either 404 or inaccessible, and a lot of information and content had already been blocked. After all, this had all happened 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, at the beginning of Huaxiao Nation's founding. And most importantly, this incident also involved General Yi. Naturally, no media outlet would have the guts to use General Yi, one of the 10 founding generals, as a source of entertainment hype. Hearing news about Evil Sword God again after 1,000 years, grenade-throwing senior immortal's heart was in turmoil for a very long time, and he couldn't be more shocked. Evil Sword God is actually still alive. As he typed these words, his heart trembled. As great death-courting senior in the cultivation circle, he felt that he already had nothing to fear, even if it was power or threats. The reason why people in the cultivation circle valued grenade-throwing senior immortal was precisely because he wasn't afraid of power and had a straightforward personality. But when it came to evil sword god, grenade-throwing senior immortal realized that his body couldn't stop trembling. Back then, out of curiosity, he had inadvertently read news about evil sword god, and from a small channel, he had found videos of evil sword god's battles. Even though these videos had already been censored, they were still vivid in grenade-throwing senior immortal's mind. After the murder of his Shifu, evil sword god was listed as Huaxiao Nation's most wanted criminal, and the government issued a heavenly Dao bounty order. Soul formation experts went after him wave after wave, but he easily beheaded them and sent them to the National Palace. Anyone with a discerning eye would know that this was provocation and contempt. However, in the face of absolute strength, evil sword god was too terrifying. Taoist Guang understood grenade-throwing senior immortal's feelings very well. He was older than grenade-throwing senior immortal, and naturally understood how terrifying that period of time was, as it was called the Black Era. He was someone who had lived through that era. After the Black Terror back then, it had a widespread influence that lasted for no less than 100 years. It was only in Wang Ling's generation that this dusty history gradually faded from public view. Now that it was brought up again, even Taoist Guang's heart was still a little unsettled. 100 years after evil sword god Chen Nanxian faded from public view back then, no matter how many cultivators Huaxiao Nation sent out to search for him, no one could find him. As for me, I met him face to face in the gate between worlds. How did it end? Grenade-throwing senior immortal was curious. Taoist Guang shook his head and sighed. I ran into him at the exit of a space in the gate between worlds. We exchanged blows, but in the end I fled. How could that be? Grenade-throwing senior immortal found it hard to believe. I launched a fierce attack with 8th grade water magic, but evil sword god set up a barrier and easily blocked it, not budging an inch. Taoist Guang's heart trembled as he typed this. Furthermore, his sword isn't an ordinary object. It's precisely the heaven-cleaving sword he seized from his Shifu, Sword Immortal Fan Rue. This is the most powerful godly sword in the current spiritual sword ranking list. Seeing Taoist Guang's words on the screen, Wang Ling subconsciously looked at Jinka. However, Taoist Guang wasn't done yet. Not only that, when I fought him, I could already sense that he had already mastered Sword Dao, one of the 3,000 great spells. Although he hadn't fully cultivated it back then, its power was already terrifying. Grenade-throwing senior immortal was astonished. 3,000 great spells. That's right. 3,000 great Daos. Taoist Guang said. At true immortal level, if you can master one Dao, it's already enough to look down on the world and transcend the mortal world. If you can master 2, or even 3, I'm afraid that only legendary existences like immortal Jinyuan can do this. In this world, there is no one who can completely master the 3,000 great spells. Wang Ling. Chapter 427. Wang Ling felt that there was probably no one in the world who had a more thorough understanding of the 3,000 great spells than he did. From the moment he was born, his memories of the 3,000 great spells had been pieced together in his mind like a jigsaw puzzle. By the time he was 5, the map of the 3,000 great spells had already taken shape and was 60% complete. As early as when he was 10 years old, this memory puzzle of the 3,000 great Dao had already been completed. It was like a dusty memory that he was born with, slowly recovering as he grew older. The 3,000 great Daos were not skills. They were rules that were related to the truth of all things in the world. In the cultivation world, they were called rules. In fact, the heavenly Dao that Taoist Guang had said he wanted to pursue, and the heavenly Dao that grenade-throwing senior immortal often talked about was actually the 3,000 great spells. However, it was not easy for even a true immortal to grasp a law. Taoist Guang couldn't help sighing in his heart as he waved his hundreds of tentacles and typed quickly. How great would it have been if I had mastered one of the 3,000 great spells back then? If you want to get through the samsara spirit tribulation, you won't need to rely on such a tortuous method at all. You can completely choose to force your way through. Speaking up to this point, Taoist Guang couldn't help slapping his thigh. What a pity, he was too stupid. Even grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't help laughing as he typed. That's why I've always felt that comprehending the heavenly Tao is something that can only be encountered by chance and can't be sought. But it's not too late, Senior Taoist Guang. There are a lot of great seniors in Brother Ling's house. Sometimes I often get new inspirations at Brother Ling's house. You're in Brother Ling's ring now, and you can come out once in a while when your spirit power is full. Take advantage of these 5 minutes to comprehend and learn more. Who knows, you might succeed. It was as if Taoist Guang had met his soulmate, and he was very excited as he wiped his tears and typed, "Don't call me Senior. From now on, you and I are brothers." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sent a teary smile emoji. "Then what should I call you? Brother Guang? A Guang? Just call me Brother Guang." "You're welcome. I'll call you Brother Grenade-throwing from now on," Taoist Guang replied. Looking at the screen, the corners of Wang Ling's mouth couldn't help twitching. This speed was too fast. Actually, there were times when Wang Ling really envied grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's social skills. Although grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was called Great Death-Courting Senior in the cultivation circle, who didn't know that this Great Death-Courting Senior was a famous social butterfly in the cultivation circle? Otherwise, it really wouldn't be possible for him to run such a large cultivation forum, which mainly discussed gossip and ridiculed scandals all year round, if he didn't have any connections in the cultivation circle. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. The next time Brother Ling burns something for Senior, I'll have him burn some broccoli for Brother Guang. This was the broccoli that Senior Wang had planted. I stared at it for 10 minutes every day, and I felt that it was very rewarding. It might even help me comprehend the heavenly Tao. Taoist Guang. Really? Then I'll have to trouble Brother Grenade-throwing to burn it for me to appraise. Seeing this, Wang Ling finally couldn't help sending an ellipsis. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal realized that he had gone off topic, and hurriedly tried to change the subject. Cough cough. Brother Guang, we can discuss this in private later. Right now, Evil Sword God is more important. Can we continue talking about what happened after we met him? Of course. Taoist Guang nodded and quickly replied. When I fought Evil Sword God at that time, I didn't even get 2 moves before I knew the outcome. This person's evil nature was even more terrifying than the rumors said. He was surrounded by a mass of sword chi formed from sword Tao, and I couldn't get close at all. I could only use long-range spells to cast obstacle spells as I escaped. If it wasn't for the unfathomable level of my water magic, I would have been cut down by his heaven-cleaving sword long ago. Now that I think about it, it really was a disgrace. Ever since I cultivated to true immortal realm, I've never been in such a sorry state that I had to rely on a water clone to escape in the end. For Taoist Guang, this was the most shameful duel of his life. But now that I think about it carefully, it seemed that he wasn't in the mood to fight me, and was instead looking for something. He only sent a clone to chase me down. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. And then Brother Guang? Later, I deliberately faked my death at his clone's hands in an attempt to divert his attention. Evil Sword God might be powerful, but he wanted to use just one clone to chase me down. It can only be said that this person's character is just as the rumors say. Arrogant, conceited, and pretentious. Taoist Guang said. After that, I didn't dare act rashly. Instead, I sent out several water clones to look for Evil Sword God in his previous position. Later, when this old man found him again, he was walking towards a cave that had just been opened. He walked out of the gate between worlds. As everyone knew, the gate between worlds had a time limit of 5 years in the outside world. If one didn't descend on their own initiative, but was summoned through a magic array, it would have to cool down for 5 years before it could be summoned again. If one wanted to get out of the gate between worlds, apart from knowing when the gate opened, one of the ways to do so as to find small space openings hidden inside the gate. As long as one could find these small space openings, one could be spat out into the outside world. But Taoist Guang shook his head. No, evil sword god didn't go out. He typed. There are a lot of small holes in the gate between worlds that can spit people out into the outside world. Immortal Zhenyuan probably deliberately designed them inside. They look random, but in fact there's a certain regularity to them. In my travels in the demon world over the years, I ran into them no less than 100 times, so I'm very familiar with them. The one that evil sword god entered was clearly different from the others. After the water clone I sent out saw evil sword god enter the hole. The hole actually disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. After that, I successfully entered the hole, but relying on the power of the water clone alone, I was completely unable to withstand the tearing power of the space inside the hole, and it didn't take long before it turned into a pile of bubbles. Grenade-throwing senior immortal. Wang Ling. Taoist Guang. But before he turned into bubbles, I saw evil sword god step into another space with my own eyes. Grenade-throwing senior immortal. Another space? Taoist Guang nodded his head. That's right. If we view the gate between worlds as a transmission link between the human realm and the demon realm, then in the middle of this transmission link, there's an unknown spatial entrance. If I'm not wrong, that spatial entrance is the entrance to the immortal's treasury. But it's very clear that the space entrance evil sword god entered isn't opened at will, and can only be opened when certain special conditions are met. I call that special spatial cavern the inner world cavern. Wang Ling. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.